Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 1:32. And where are we now?
Okay. Sorry. Good afternoon, Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Just a little precursor before we get into the cross-department teams. Keith Clinskill, Director of Strategic Planning and Performance Management. So what we provided you, in November, all of the teams had an opportunity to present to the management team quite an extensive presentation, like 30 to 40 minutes each. We wanted to give you guys an abbreviated version, a summary, but we did provide you with the entire presentation, but what you're going to hear today is like 10-minute, give or take a couple minutes, summary per team. The first team up is the Economic Development team.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Howard. I'm the Deputy Director of the Department of Housing and Economic Development. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Marino and County Commissioners. The Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners has identified economic development as one of its top strategic priorities, as Keith mentioned earlier, and we are well known as a global destination to work, live, and play. To accomplish that, we recognize that this applies not only to visitors and to newly migrated residents from up north, but to every resident in Palm Beach County, and we want to make sure that we identify those residents. To that end, economic development activities are carried out throughout our county departments and are represented on our team as seen here. So, next slide. We wanted to provide you with some quick data that's included in your backup that reflects some framework of the county's current economic environment. As an update to the Palm Beach County profile reported to you from last year, population has grown by approximately 20,000 residents. Median housing prices have gone down to slightly 600,000, and median income has also risen to like 90,800, but still wages are not keeping pace with the cost of housing. Unemployment has risen from 2.6% to 3%, but still remains below the nation's average for the past 3 years. However, the average unemployment rate in the Glaze remains higher at about 15%. During the pandemic, Palm Beach County rebounded quickly, in part to our diverse industry base, and our Department of Housing and Economic Development, continues to monitor trends in order to revise and update strategies to minimize an over-resilience on any one sector and bolster stronger economic recoveries due to either global or interstate competition, economic shocks, or other disruptions. According to our industry data, and as shown here from the State Department of Commerce, these industries represent the top industries by employment growth in Palm Beach County over the last year. The two leading industries include leisure and hospitality and trade and transportation, generally known as logistics. Other trends that we keep track of, and we really started this diligently during the pandemic, as we look at the number of businesses and the number of employees that they have, which continues to grow here. Of the 68,481 total businesses in Palm Beach County, 93% of businesses have 25 or less employees, and 75% of businesses have 5 or less employees. And you can see here that businesses with 5 or less employees have the strongest rate growth. Industries leading the way in small business growth include professional services and healthcare. We track a lot of different types of data, but one of the other data points that we study is the gross domestic product, or GDP, in the county by industry. The GDP is a measurement of economic activity based on the value of final goods and services, and is typically the most popular indicator of economic health. These numbers have been adjusted to remove the effects of inflation over time, so different time periods can be compared. Which industries have grown most significantly, and as we've all seen with Wall Street South, shown here in the tan piece, is finance, has 13.5% growth from the last year. We are now going to talk about our 6 key economic goals and how those metrics for those goals are met through varying departments, again, taking into consideration all residents in the county. Our 6 goals include a stable, diversified, and resilient economic base that maximizes jobs for county residents and capitalizes on emerging industries, growing the tourism and hospitality industry by driving room nights and their associated economic impact, to promote entrepreneurial opportunities, revitalize communities to support economic development, support and promote a viable and diverse agricultural industry, and enhance and expand opportunities for paid and unpaid student apprentice programs so we can keep our talent here. I'm now going to turn it over to Paul Connell to review some of those county economic development initiatives.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Ms. Baker. While there's much more detailed information in our full presentation, we've pulled out the applicable ROI measures to highlight economic development activity related to the team goals. In programs managed by the Department of Housing and Economic Development, over the last 3 years, for every $1 invested by the county, $9.46 in other funding was leveraged. 15,702 jobs were created and retained, and 6,800 businesses were assisted. This includes business loan and grant programs managed directly by the county and additional services through their partners. These partners provide technical and other types of assistance needed, whether they are startup or larger companies looking to relocate and expand here. Each dollar invested in the Community Action Program resulted in a return of over $2. In 2023, $633,559 was invested, with 71 clients receiving vocational training services. Tourism is the second largest sector in the county. In 2023, the Palm Beaches welcomed 9.5 million visitors, which resulted in an economic impact of $10 billion that supports more than 90,000 jobs in the leisure and hospitality sector. The level of demand in the Palm Beaches destination resulted in record-breaking bed tax collections of $84 million, 8% higher than last year's $77.8 million. With the lowest CPE, cost for employment value, compared to other South Florida airports, PBI was recognized as the 4th best mid-sized U.S. airport. Its economic impact supports 32,000 jobs, generating $1.5 billion in payroll. To promote entrepreneurial activities, the Office of Equal Business Opportunity conducts outreach events in the community. In the past year, 486 attendees participated. 100 contractors were certified, with 5 of the newly certified contractors participating as subcontractors. Collaborating with the Sports Commission, the Parks and Recreation Department's sports tourism events resulted in 14,512 room nights and $10 million in economic impact. Parks and Recreation operations supported 11,238 jobs in related employment. And with the assistance of PREM, public-private partnerships have generated millions of dollars in private capital investment and over $500,000 in annual concession revenue. Supporting goal number 4, the Office of Community Revitalization completed $200,000 in NEAT, Neighborhood Engagement and Transformation Grant projects, benefiting over 5,000 residents. Securing over $500,000 in state funding, the Cooperative Extension FNEP program remains at the forefront of nutrition education efforts to reduce nutrition insecurity of low-income families and youth. This program has saved $5.6 million in healthcare costs and $1.3 million in food expenditures for county residents in 2023. Investing in the future workforce in Palm Beach County, our team continues to grow our own by focusing efforts, strategies, and metrics on recruiting, hiring, and tracking student, intern, and apprentice positions. We currently employ 269 students in various positions and have 17 apprentices in trades such as utilities, mechanical, and construction-related positions. Fire Rescue has a robust cadet program that averages 150 teen participants. Their focus is on preparing young men and women for a job or for a career in fire service or the medical field. Fire Rescue has hired 42 cadets from this program. During fiscal year 2023, Youth Services Department continued to serve as a trainee site for psychology predoctoral interns, postdoctoral fellows, and doctoral practicum trainees. Additionally, through public-private partnerships, 130 summer youth intern positions were provided by community-based agencies that receive funding from the county through youth services. In terms of return on investment, the feedback we obtain from students and interns indicates that they benefit economically as well as in terms of skills gained, including communication, problem solving, multitasking, and interpersonal. So the next steps for our team include continue to develop and refine strategies to address the county's goals for economic development, continue to evaluate metric outcomes to determine the effectiveness of our strategies, to modify any of those strategies to address negative outcomes, and to explore methods to quantify return on investment for county programs and expenditures. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no questions.
Okay, great.
Oh, I do now. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. Sorry, I was making notes still. Back on slide 5, I think was where your strategic priorities. I know that we have on here for paid and unpaid student and apprentice programs, but I'm wondering where do we stand as far as having workforce development? I know we have more jobs than people to fill them right now in some instances, and I know like unemployment rates are higher in certain industries, that we just have a shortage of people able to do these jobs. So can you address where we stand on career education, which I know it's not us to do it, but if we can help identify this, there's Palm Beach State College and some other, even FAU, that could, we could maybe nudge them on, these are the workforce development that we need. These are the people that we need to be coming out of the educational facilities to do certain jobs. So have we identified those areas?
Yeah, well, what's happening is there's a number of initiatives that are taking place. Some are in the county and some are with our partners. Community Services does have some of their upward economic mobility strategics plans that they use, that they train CDL drivers and things like that. We also work very closely with CareerSource. When we have businesses come in, we connect them with them so that they can help to put the workforce training together with the type of workforce that they need. And also through our partnership with the BDB, they have the Academics Leadership Council, and they bring all of those institutions together, and we all sit and we talk about, what are the emerging industries? What do we need to start to focus on? Where's our shortage in workforce? So I think that a lot of that is just a combination of all of those initiatives where we're looking to identify those as they come along.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, so used to looking at you down there.
We also work with the school district directly on internship programs. We worked with them very closely on developing a fire academy at Palm Beach Lakes in order to ensure the particular groups are well represented for our fire department. We ended up having the city of West Palm, Riviera Beach, along with our own fire department, all three of them working together to support the program at Palm Beach Lakes High School. I want to say when Audrey Wolf was here, that was our first initial start with internships with the high school out west. And we actually worked with them on our HVAC program and some of our other blue-collar type jobs. And we're continuing to grow those particular programs and internships under the guise of Palm Beach County. We've hired a number of those interns on a permanent basis. We also have a contract here with FAU for their psychologists, et cetera, so that we would have those individuals on board with us when they finish their internship. And Tammy Fields was instrumental in making and forging that agreement, which the board agreed at the time that we would enter into. So we're constantly looking for more relationships with those particular ones. We actually had a meeting with the engineering department, et cetera. So we're looking to tag them as well to get interns in, hopefully keep them and convert them to permanent employees.
Okay, do one follow-up, please. As far as with the skilled trades, because I mean, this is a national, maybe global problem that we don't have enough people coming in. A lot of, I think, the latest statistics were 50% of people who do these jobs are over 45, and then half of those are actually over 55. So they're aging out, and these are important jobs that we need to keep our society running. Infrastructure. It's important, but I mean, we don't have people maintaining all of this, then we're building it and it's just gonna rot. So that's, I don't know how that fits into your strategic priorities, but it's definitely something that we need to be aware of and address. And it's not just a local problem, but it's something that we have to fix locally. So, thank you.
And I do want to point out that Palm Beach State College also works with the group and Career Source in order to make sure their curriculum is where it needs to be in order to continue the pipeline.
And we do require it through a lot of our contracts with our economic development partners as well, that they bring interns into their organizations.
Any other questions? Thank you. Who's continuing?
Okay, thank you.
Next up is housing and homelessness.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name's Carlos Serrano. I'm with your Department of Housing and Economic Development, but here representing the Housing and Homelessness Cross-Department team.
Team Red. Thank you
Next
for
slide,
everybody
please.
that wore red today. We're Team Red. Team Red.
Lots of representation. The Housing and Homelessness team is constituted by a diverse group of professionals you see here on this slide that represent 11 different county departments that work to provide affordable housing and meet the needs of the homeless and other vulnerable residents of the county. Our goals have remained simple and consistent since the inception of our team. The first, to increase the ability of those who work in the county to afford to live in the county. The second, to reduce homelessness in Palm Beach County. And the third, to improve access to social services. On this slide, you see how over the past decade, local housing prices have outpaced income, resulting in decreasing affordability over time. 10 years ago, back in 2014, a median-priced home cost 4.2 times the median income. But as housing prices outpaced income, a median-priced home today now costs over 6 times median income. That median single-family home price in 2023, $600,000, and median family income, $98,300. Renting really isn't any more affordable. The 2024 HUD fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,226 a month. To afford this rent, a tenant would need to earn approximately $89,000 a year or make almost $43 per hour. The county's workforce housing program requires that housing serving households at 60 to 140% of the area median income be provided by all residential developments of 10 or more units located in the unincorporated area. As of August 2023, more than 3,300 housing units have been required by the program, including over 1,300 rentals and 400 for-sale homes. The program's also generated more than $17 million of in-lieu fee payments. And during 2023, the program celebrated its 227th sale to a workforce homebuyer. Additionally, during 2023, the Department of Housing and Economic Development awarded a total of $25.6 million to 15 different housing projects that will generate 764 housing units. We're going to turn it over to Wendy Tippett now.
Hi. How was everybody today?
Good, how are you?
Good. Have a good lunch? Had a great lunch. It's beautiful outside. So this slide shows the continuum of care's annual point in time data and the Palm Beach County School District data for FY23. Two different definitions are used in these graphs. One is the HUD graph, which those are folks that are living in their car, living in the park, living in the street. While the school district uses folks that are doubled up, living in hotels paid for by themselves, living with a grandmother, an aunt, etc. In FY 2023, we were fortunate to have Jim Mackey with PBSO join our cross-departmental team probably 3 years ago, right? Yeah, so this year he ran the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office report for unduplicated police service calls related to the unhoused. There were over 3,000 unduplicated, and close to 600 field interview reports were created in relation to individuals that are experiencing homelessness. Next slide. In FY23, 57% of new enrollees in the reentry services were identified as homeless upon release from incarceration. The housing assistance cost you can receive is $10,000 max per participant. This can be utilized for transitional housing, rent, application fees, first, last, security, etc. On the other side in green is the FY23 what we spent in COVID dollars, which was $111 million, and the number of households were 26,732, with the average expenditure being right about $4,200. Slide. This slide we're probably most proud of, or I am. Won't say everybody, but I am. This slide shows the available housing inventory for persons experiencing homelessness. Thank you all who attended yesterday for the Housing Resource Center opening. Beautiful building, beautiful building. It's the most recent addition. This morning, everybody moved out of the annex that is now empty and clear and moved into the new facility. Services that they receive at shelters include case management, financial literacy, housing-focused case management, clothing, things of that nature. We have about 267 units as shown on this slide. Also, we got some very good news yesterday for the Housing and Homeless Alliance. HUD announced their award for the Continuum of Care. We were awarded $11.2 million to serve the homeless. Thank you. It's a 24% increase over last year's award. So we're really pleased with that. Fourth largest award in Florida. Next slide. Providing access to social services is a big part in reducing homelessness. The Fire Rescue Mobile Integrated Health Team assisted over 6,300 patients in FY23, with 574 of them identifying as homeless. In partnership with the Parks and Recreation, on the next, in the blue, we've assisted 133 participants through the Parks to Work program since its inception in 2018. We added the Lord's Place this year in 2023 as a culinary chef's apprenticeship program as part of the Parks to Work program. To round up in Goal 3, we ensure that children experiencing homelessness are safe during the summer months by providing summer camp scholarships through the Youth Services Department. In FY23, 363 scholarships were utilized by homeless children. And finally, this slide shows a summary of the accomplishments related to addressing the housing and homelessness goals in 2023. Although affordable housing and homeless issues are currently on the rise nationally, we continue to address these concerns in Palm Beach County with the resources that we have available, and thank you very much for your continued support. Out-of-the-box thinking, partnerships with housing authorities, healthcare providers, and the community are essential. We will continue to seek resources to bring healthcare, behavioral health, job training centers with a focus on business hubs and private industry partnerships to the table. It will take all of us to work as a collaborative team to bring housing, support services, and employment that pays a living wage. How much?
Almost $43 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom unit at fair market.
A living wage is what is needed to help end homelessness. So on behalf of Team Red, go Team Red. Thank you. Thank you for your support. There is a much more detailed report behind this. If you have any questions, call James Green. No, you can call me or you can call Carlos.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, anybody have questions? I don't see any lights lit. Oh, Commissioner Baxter.
Hi, Wendy. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we had some conversations when I went to visit the Homeless Resource Center before it moved.
At the annex.
So I wanted to ask what, when I was there, they had mentioned that people are only there 90 days, the beds?
Maximum 90 days.
Maximum 90 days. And one of the things that I found concerning that I'd like you to elaborate on was that we focus at the county level on the most needy.
Well, across the country, if you want HUD funding, you're going to focus on the most needy.
Do you think 90 days is a sufficient time frame for the most needy?
If we don't do 90 days or less, we will lose considerable points in the HUD competition.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I actually, I think we enjoy, as just mentioned, getting $11 million state, federal
big
funding.
deal.
It's always a great thing. I guess what I'm asking, the people who tend to need longer than 90 days, are they your chronic homelessness revisit people?
No, not necessarily. I mean, folks that need more than 90 days usually have a very checkered history of evictions. They have child welfare involvement. I mean, there's other things that have led to their homelessness.
And what is the criteria for determining the most needy?
It's done through a VI SPDAT, which is an assessment tool, and it's also done by the length of homelessness.
Do you know any of them off the top of your head? Like, are they questions that you ask before they come in?
They are questions, yes, that you ask, and it's, do you drink alcohol? If so, how much? Do you have a mental health disorder? Do you have a disability? How long have you been on the street? What's your job history? That kind of stuff.
Gotcha. And that's where I guess I was concerned in why I mentioned earlier, just being able to help people longer than 90 days. I mean, are we identifying if it's a mental health issue, if it's a drug issue, or if it's just hey, I need 90 days to sleep, or not sleep, but have a roof over my head. I think when most people think homeless, that I'm just trying to figure out the best way so us as a board can A, be informed, and be a path forward to make the best impact, because people who need more extensive health on the mental health issue, and whether that's substance abuse or not, what are we doing currently to help address that?
Yeah, so, I've said it before, the loss of the Jerome Golden Center was huge in our community. I mean, your choice is to get on a bus or Tri-Rail or whatever and either go into Broward or hit South County up when South County is really at capacity. So we have a lot of private providers that we try to partner with. Those come and go. My question for, you mentioned earlier, addicts and mentally ill is, where do they go?
And so do we have anything currently that addresses that? Or is it all lumped under the homeless?
It's not lumped under, that's John. John, you look, raise your hand. Yeah, that's, we rely on John's shop. I will say in the last HUD competition, Southeast Florida Behavioral Health is doing $1 million program for folks that are currently using, but have a desire to be clean. So we're going to see how that goes. But we try to be as low barrier as we can. We try to gain trust. The shelter is no place for anybody to be, not a family or an individual. We try to move them out as fast as we possibly can into rapid rehousing or into permanent supportive housing. Our issue is the same issue that every constituent has that is looking for a rental. Used to be able to do shared housing with two disabled seniors, that get $850 a month, and used to be able to find an apartment where they'd each have their own bedroom. That's not possible anymore. And we're not the only community that's scratching their head around this or struggling with this. Every community across the nation is. I will say, I'm pretty proud last year our decrease in our point in time count was chronically homeless. So we are making a difference, but there are things out there that are happening that are out of our control. The loss of, in the Glades, the loss of the 80 acres and the 330 units. How do we recover 330 units?
How many would, if you don't mind, Vice Mayor, how many would you say, do you think of our beds that are available are taken up by the chronically homeless?
Probably 45%.
And so there, I guess, in lies, I believe, a problem where we should address that, you can't treat the chronic and the newly homeless in the same categories. And so I don't know if this will come up later, or if this is the time, but I think it's an important issue that I would like to really try to help. I don't have all the answers, but I look forward to suggestions of how we could possibly address that. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you.
Ms. Baker, did you have any additional comments? Or Keith?
Just wanted to wrap up with the fact that we do have caseworkers assigned to the families and individuals that we assist with homelessness so that we can define what their issues are, try to put them in touch with the right people, including our CEFBEN and others that provide mental health. Again, our major issue is housing.
Thank you. All right, what's next?
So appropriate. Next team is substance use and behavior disorders.
Good afternoon. I'm Jackie Lambert with the Parks and Recreation Department. This is the Substance Use and Behavior Disorders Cross-Departmental Team's summary presentation of fiscal year 2023. Do you know your Substance Use and Behavior Disorders Cross-Departmental Team? As you can see, we're a diverse group of individuals from over 10 county departments, all dedicated to one mission. Did you know your Substance Use and Behavior Disorders Cross-Departmental Team's why? Our team has been honored to focus on 3 goals, which are listed on this slide. Our mission is to illuminate access points within the county to assist individuals and families to connect to systems of care related to substance use and mental health. The commitment to a system of care is not new. Beginning with the adoption of the first opioid response plan in 2017, much has been accomplished to combat the opioid crisis in Palm Beach County. This slide shows the timeline of accomplishments, including establishing substance use and behavior disorders as a strategic priority and the creation of this cross-departmental team. Did you know our county focuses on the whole person through an ecosystem of care? Palm Beach County has a network of local recovery community centers and organizations, including our 2 hub locations in Delray and Lake Worth Beach. These hubs provide individualized recovery support services to those living with substance, alcohol, and mental health disorders. This includes connecting individuals to resources to meet their unique needs, such as housing, employment, peer support, mental health, and addiction care services, and other medical care. Did you know the medical examiner's motto is Mortui vivos docent, the dead teach the living? The medical examiner plays a significant role in providing answers and closure for families after an unexpected death of a loved one. Through data collected as part of death investigations, the medical examiner shares important trends and information which may help reduce preventable deaths in the future. I'd like to introduce Lauren to continue with the presentation.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and Mrs. Baker. I am Lauren Young Work with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. Did you know that Palm Beach County Fire Rescue provides compassionate care and is a bridge to services for those living with and at risk of substance, alcohol, and mental health disorders? As you may know, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue is often an entry point for individuals living with mental health, substance, and alcohol use disorders. We are the first EMS agency in Florida to have a team of clinical social workers who partner with our mobile integrated health team community paramedics to meet the needs of patients by providing compassionate clinical care and care coordination if needed after their 911 call. We served over 6,300 patients in fiscal year 2023. And every patient that we serve is educated about 211, the county's helpline and crisis resource, to ensure ongoing connection to vital services, programs, and supports. Did you know that Palm Beach County has programs for victims and first-time offenders? Exposure to trauma and violence is a known risk factor to mental health, substance, and alcohol use disorders. Palm Beach County has a victim services program that aids victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, homicide, and other violent crimes through crisis response, advocacy, therapy, and community awareness. In collaboration with the state attorney's office, the county has the first-time offender program, which helps educate those at risk of continued domestic violence to reduce the likelihood of recurrence. Did you know that the Criminal Justice Commission promotes best practices, innovative strategies, and programming to reduce crime related to substance use and behavior disorders? The Criminal Justice Commission's efforts to coordinate partners within the legal and criminal justice fields has aided in the reduction of filings for drug possession cases related to both opioids and cocaine. The Next Steps pilot program was launched in October 2022 to assist participants identified as high system users with mental health challenges and decrease recidivism. There is currently 31 participants, which is an increase from last year, in the Next Steps program receiving wraparound services such as intensive case management, financial literacy education, and supportive housing. Did you know that Palm Beach County offers free evidence-based mental health services? Youth Services was our first government organization in Florida and fourth in the nation to become certified in the sanctuary model of trauma-informed care. In addition to mental health therapy, Youth Services provides parenting education and other resources to help families address issues such as body image, social media usage, and dating violence. Outreach events held by Palm Beach County departments ensure our residents are aware of the programs and access points available to them. Of the 221 outreach events in 2023, 88 involved youth services. Did you know, with this team's input, PalmTran created a roadmap to mental health and substance use resources throughout Palm Beach County? This team identified a need for increased awareness of transportation options to recovery-oriented services and supports within our county. In partnership with PalmTran, this team created the Bus Route Roadmap, which identifies stops and routes directly correlated to agencies, programs, and resources for substance, alcohol, and mental health needs. This slide showcases the roadmap and some of the highlighted locations along several bus routes. Did you know that Palm Beach County departments offer access and support and are part of the recovery ecosystem? There are some county departments that you may not expect to be part of our recovery ecosystem, yet they play an important role. Parks and Recreation attended over 130 outreach events and provided information about many county programs that promote health and wellness, such as socializing with friends and family, spending time in nature, and exercising. Housing is a major point of stress and anxiety for many people. The County Cooperative Extension's educational program helps by explaining different housing resources available to our county residents, including down payment assistance and workforce housing programs. In fiscal year 2023, over 100 county employees participated in financial literacy lunch and learns. Besides books, the library system offers events and classes to the community that provide social connections, learning, mental health, and well-being information. In fiscal year 2023, over 54,000 participants were in attendance at activities or events hosted by our library system. Did you know that Palm Beach County employee assistance programs are confidential? Mental health and substance use issues are not just important to those we serve, but also our own employees and families as well. Employees who have accessed our Employee Assistance Program, or EAP, have provided positive feedback, some of which can be seen on this slide, related to the experiences they have had. In fiscal year 2023, the EAP assisted over 320 employees and had 125 participants attend educational and training programs. Palm Beach County is dedicated to meeting the needs of all residents with innovative programs and services. Although our time was short today, know that our commitment has no end. We have accomplished so much in fiscal year 2023 to support our residents living with substance, alcohol, mental health, and wellness issues, and we will continue our mission in 2024. Thank you for your presence today. We would be honored to take any questions.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Weiss has his light on.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Question is, on the JFK North facility, do we know how many people they treated this past year?
I do not have JFK North's data relating to how many patients they treated. I assume you mean in regards to just substance and alcohol use disorder patients?
Yeah,
or psychiatric as well. I do not have that information.
I mean, the MAT program that we're
I do not have that data.
If somebody could follow up, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? All righty, moving on. Looks like
Moving on, public safety, cross-departmental team.
not infrastructure?
In the right order?
Okay. I have order in my book.
Public safety. Public safety.
Okay, who's going
There
first?
you go.
Start over here. All right, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Casey Messer, HIV Services Program Manager for Palm Beach County and Chair of the Public Safety Cross-Departmental Team. Public safety is one of our county's identified strategic priorities, and this presentation highlights the efforts of the Public Safety Cross-Departmental Team for fiscal year 2023. This presentation is truly a team effort, and I would like to thank all of our team members for their hard work and dedication on this team. As showcased on this slide, we represent 14 different departments. And today, Chief Phil Olivaria of Fire Rescue will be co-presenting with me. We're happy to announce that the Safety Council of Palm Beach County, during its 26th annual Safety Awards Luncheon this past April, awarded the Public Safety Cross-Departmental Team with the Special Recognition Award as the only multidisciplinary cross-functional team focusing innovative efforts to provide information to the public and county staff with the Keeping You Safe campaign, which was produced by Channel 20. Our team has 4 goals as presented on this slide. 1, enhance public awareness through safety education. 2, prepare for, respond to, and recover from all emergencies. 3, ensure the overall safety of our community. And 4, improve the overall health and well-being of our community. Let's look more closely at goal number 1 with Fire Rescue Chief.
Good afternoon. To address public safety needs in our community, an emphasis is placed on awareness being provided through various platforms as demonstrated by fire rescue outreach programming and the medical examiner's office tracking comparisons of death trends with other counties in the state of Florida. The Building and Emergency Management divisions promote many online resources, including flood zone maps to educate residents and encourages property owners to look up their flood zone to be better prepared for flood hazards. Education is also a key critical component of public safety, such as water safety education and swim lessons, along with educating the public on the criminal justice system through the Citizens Criminal Justice Academy. Over 9,000 people were reached by Parks and Recreation through water safety instruction and outreach in fiscal year 23. And between 2020 and 2023, a total of 648 participants have graduated from the Academy. Our second goal is prepare for, respond to, and recover from all emergencies. Palm Beach County Fire Rescue continues to maintain a response time quicker than the highest acceptable industry standard of 7.5 minutes, even with the explosive growth in Palm Beach County. Fiscal year 23 saw a significant decrease from the previous year, showcasing that an increase in personnel with 82 new graduates has made a positive impact. Additionally, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue continues to uphold the requirements to maintain the Elite Insurance Service Office Class 1 designation, allowing for lower insurance premiums for residents and businesses alike. Palm Beach County Fire Rescue is the only fire rescue department in the county with a whole blood program, which allows for whole blood transfusions to take place in the field, increasing survival rates of patients before they even arrive at an emergency room. Additionally, our portable rescue watercrafts have been operational for just over a year, being dispatched 52 times with 15 instances of patient contact in fiscal year 23. Preparing, responding, and recovering from emergencies was readily evident with the approach of Hurricane Nicole in November of 2022. The Emergency Operations Center was activated to a level 1. 9 evacuation shelters opened and were staffed with county employees from various departments alongside our school board, emergency medical services, and healthcare district partners. Also, unsafe structures investigation by the Planning, Zoning, and Building Department is an integral part of ensuring damaged buildings do not pose a risk to the public. 55 active unsafe structures were investigated during fiscal year 2023. Back to you, Dr. Messer.
Thanks, Chief. Transitioning to Goal 3, ensure the overall safety of our community. As shown on these graphs, the number of unique complaints and investigations to Animal Care and Control have increased, while the number of preventative actions taken by county lifeguards maintained over the last 4 years. Ocean Rescue takes a proactive approach by educating the public about potential hazards prior to the individual needing assistance. Over 98,000 preventative actions were taken by staff at county beaches in FY23 to keep people from harm. All county employees receive human trafficking and awareness training. Since the launch of the program, 4,373 employees received the training, with 347 occurring in FY23. Additionally, Consumer Affairs integrated human trafficking awareness information as part of the licensing process to more than 1,400 adult entertainers and nearly 1,000 vehicle-for-hire driver applicants in FY23. The county's mobile integrated health program through Fire Rescue served over 6,300 patients from October 2022 to October 2023. Over 3,700 patients living with substance and alcohol use disorders were supported through our addiction program in the past 12 months. This slide compares PBC violent offenses to the state of Florida. There have been significant declines in most violent offense categories over the last 2 decades. There was a notable decline of 63.1% for robbery and 37.9% for aggravated assaults in Palm Beach County. We are proud to announce that the Mobile Probation Unit, or MPU, received a 2023 NACO award. The MPU has serviced 1,494 clients since the launch in January to August 2023. We are also monitoring technical violations of probation to determine the full impact of the MPU on violations for the future. We'll now shift to our 4th goal, improving the overall health and well-being of our community. To address Goal 4, I'll begin with HIV elimination services for Palm Beach County, which provides medical care and support services for 8,700 people with HIV through programs like Ryan White. Using new initiatives such as mobile health units and telehealth applications, ensure that HIV care and treatment is accessible to all people with HIV throughout the county. Additionally, increasing public awareness through social media and a series of community engagements advances the goal to end the HIV epidemic in Palm Beach County by 2030. In FY23, 55% of all sexual assault victims had their forensic exams performed at the Butterfly House of Wellington Regional Medical Center. The Butterfly House is Palm Beach County's first and only standalone sexual assault response center. 100% of the 208 exams collected in FY23 were conducted by county forensic nurses, regardless of the exam location. To conclude, we'll highlight the Youth Services Department's Family Violence Intervention Program, which was developed as a diversion program for a child who has committed domestic violence. Upon successfully completing the intervention program, the youth's charges are dropped and their record is expunged. In 2023, 108 youth were diverted to the program. Enhanced mentoring engagement has also proved to have positive impacts on our youth. Through our NACO-winning Level Up program, 95% of the youth served remained crime-free throughout the year. and 77% of youth who received mentoring for at least 6 months maintained or improved coping mechanisms for dealing with stress. As for next steps for our cross-departmental team, we plan to continue providing safety education to the public, further collaborate with various county departments and outside entities on public safety opportunities, and maintain safety measures at the forefront of everything that we do. At this time, we'll answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
It's a lot of info that you're all sharing with us today. Thank you. And while we may not have questions at this moment, I'm guessing that our board members are going to take this information, read it, and then give you a lot of questions. But what's next? Because I see no lights on.
Okay, next up is infrastructure.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Regina Hager with ISS, and this is the Infrastructure Cross-Departmental Team 2023 recap. Our team consists of members representing approximately 15 county departments. Unfortunately, we have lost 2 of our members, Mr. John Acton from Water Utilities and Mr. Clinton Forbes from Palm-Tran. We keep them in our thoughts. Our infrastructure goals are: 1, increase resiliency and sustainability of infrastructure. 2, continue to preserve existing infrastructure and deliver new infrastructure that conforms to the latest industry standards. 3, create safe, healthy, and attractive neighborhoods and communities. 4, increase multimodal travel opportunities with safe and efficient transportation services. Palm Beach County is continuously on the lookout for grant monies and other types of alternative funding sources. Recent awards include over $40 million for several departments to increase resiliency and sustainability in county infrastructure. The Federal Department of Environmental Protection requires municipalities to meet stormwater quality goals, which dictate the minimum inspection and maintenance requirements. Palm Beach County Engineering is still in the planning process for developing a master plan of all county stormwater data in order to analyze and provide site-specific and project recommendations. The county continues to expand its electric vehicle charging capabilities, with new charging stations being added at airports, Vista Center, and other county locations. Facilities has also reintroduced fully electric and hybrid vehicles into its fleet. Facilities Development and Operations Capital Teams is full steam ahead on new construction and renovations across the county. Despite the high cost due to inflation and staffing or supply shortages happening nationwide, the team is dedicated to completing projects on time and on budget as much as possible, while still delivering high-quality results. The Department of Libraries recently completed 2 major renovations at the Lantana and Wellington branches to provide updated and expanded resources and incorporate green energy measures. Our newest library branch, Canyon, is expected to open next year in western Boynton Beach. The county's 5-year road program establishes the priorities for the expansion and renewal of the county's transportation system. Engineering and public works staff designs, plans, coordinates, and does the work on roads, traffic signals, streetscaping, bridges, and much more to ensure our county's transportation system stays reliable and safe. I'll now pass it to Daniel to continue with our presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Duenas with the Palm Beach County Parks and Recreation Department. At the Parks and Recreation Department, we've been working diligently to update or expand our facilities to cater to our ever-growing community's needs. Construction of new athletic and enrichment facilities spread across the county, from the glades to our beautiful beaches. The airport's Design and Constructions Division is managing projects to ensure we can keep up with demand. Projects include roadway and facility improvements and noise, environmental, and capacity studies. At Palm Beach International, the major expansion of Concourse B will enhance passenger travel experience with additional waiting areas, food options, and expanded restrooms. Water Utilities also continues to provide to over 600,000 residents in the central and south central unincorporated areas of the county and western communities. The Water Utilities Department has reinvested $371 million since 2020 to maintain its commitment to low service costs and high quality. Due to the collaboration of the departments on this cross-departmental team, and especially due to the county-wide community revitalization team's needs assessment process, members recognize the overlap of projects and the need to easily access information for planning, budgeting, and notification to the public by creating a shared GIS portal. The portal won the 2022 National Association of Counties Best in category for information technology. The collaboration between Water Utilities and Parks and Recreation at Green Cay already boasts a nature center and over 100 acres of wetlands. The Green Cay Phase 2 expansion focuses on providing a park for recreational activities and a water reuse education center known as RECAP for children and adults of all ages. Palm Beach County Transportation Departments have been awarded several local and federal grants to enhance safety, connectivity, and alternate transportation options. Engineering and Public Works was awarded a $4.3 million local initiative grant for the construction of a buffered bike lanes on Sandsbury Road, covering approximately 3 miles in central Palm Beach County. The Traffic Division received the Safe Streets for All federal grant to develop a safety action plan to further enhance the county's transportation network. The request for proposal for the project is scheduled for release next month. Palm Trend has been operating and providing transportation options to the county for 50 years, servicing all major attractions, shopping centers, schools, and our beautiful parks and beaches. The federally funded Go Glade service has transformed the mobility and connectivity in our western communities, and the Pay Your Wayfare system allows customers to purchase passes virtually or at the many in-person kiosks. Palm Trans' increasing ridership numbers reflect the fact that as our county grows, so does the need for reliable and affordable transportation options. And with that, we thank you very much for allowing us to present this small fraction of our work from the last year, and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Okay, no one's rushing to turn their lights on. So I'm guessing at this time, we have no more questions for you.
Thank you.
Great information, thank you.
Madam, last but not least, environmental protection, cross-departmental team.
I love this picture with the 4 deer.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to the Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and Ms. Baker for inviting us here today to speak about the very important topic of environmental protection. My name is Jamie Bosio with the Palm Beach County Library System, and I'm joined by Ron Rice from the Extension Department. And we are here to give you an overview of our team, goals, and projects for the Environmental Protection Cross-Departmental Team. Our team includes 17 staff members representing 13 Palm Beach County departments, and our objective as a team is to improve county environmental, sustainable, and resilient strategies in an equitable way to better serve our residents and visitors. Our 6 goals are to promote healthy and vibrant beaches, maintain diverse and resilient ecosystems, protect and support human health, safety, water quality, and quality of life, ensure a positive environmental experience for our residents and visitors, promote sustainable and resilient practices and principles, and finally, to preserve and enhance our thriving agriculture. For Goal 1, the Environmental Resources Management Department, or ERM, has carried out several beach renourishment projects, placing approximately 1.5 million cubic yards of sand on our beaches to maintain critical protection of county coastal properties and infrastructure. This is the highest 11-year moving average in county history, reflecting the impacts of multiple storm events. ERM has also worked to protect endangered species by carrying out 3 rounds of regulatory sea turtle lighting inspections to increase compliance and enforcement. By the 3rd round, 99% of inspected properties were compliant with the sea turtle lighting ordinance. Goal 2 focuses on maintaining diverse and resilient ecosystems. When we use the word resilient, we mean that our ecosystems are healthy enough to recover from natural and human-caused disturbances. We continue to expand and maintain the spoil islands in the Lake Worth Lagoon, which serve as critical habitat for coastal nesting species like the American oystercatcher. After decades of absence, these created islands have become the southernmost ground nesting location for the American oystercatcher and black skimmer on the Florida East Coast. And an additional 51 acres have been added for future conservation. Meanwhile, as part of their continuing regreening master plan, Parks has completed 50% of their tree inventory and seeks projects to provide additional wildlife habitat to county park lands. The Office of Community Revitalization provided a $10,000 Neighborhood Engagement and Transformation, or NEAT, grant for a Plants for Wildlife demonstration garden at Bush Wildlife's new Rocky Pines campus in Jupiter. In fiscal year 2023, our volunteers contributed over 57,000 hours to maintain and improve our county ecosystems. This carries a $1.7 million value to the county. Goal 3 carries 3 main themes: water quality, safety, and compliance. ERM, Community Revitalization, and the Water Utilities Department work in multiple ways to protect our residents and water resources. To this end, water utilities carried out over 85,300 lab tests, achieving 100% compliance with all federal and state regulatory requirements. Palm Beach County is managing $183 million in grant funding to provide 4.8 gallons of long-term water storage in the C51 Reservoir Phase 2. The Office of Community Revitalization is finalizing traffic safety speed bump installations with 3 CCRT areas. Palm Beach County is providing funding to facilitate the $7.7 million Resilient Florida grant to upgrade the remaining 3 miles of the Corbett Levee. For compliance, ERM has continued petroleum storage tank inspections and remediation activities, as well as well field inspections to protect our drinking water. Next, Ron Rice from the Extension Department will present our final 3 goals.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Goal 4 is an area where our environmental CDT partners have really shown exceptional efforts at education and community connection. For example, our different nature centers and our natural areas have hosted over 1,000 environmental appreciation events, reaching over 37,000 participants, with an additional environmental programming at our libraries as well as Mounts Botanical Garden. FY23 marked the return of ERM's Natural Areas Festival at Winding Waters Natural Area, and it was also a record-setting turnout for the 10th annual Lagoon Fest celebration along the downtown West Palm Beach waterfront. The various photos you see there show other programs like Parks Nature Ninja Warriors, Extension's Ambassador to the Wetlands, as well as ERM's Green Futures internships, which collectively highlight opportunities for our underserved communities to connect with nature and the great outdoors. And then finally, Parks, and this has been mentioned already, is intentionally expanding multiple facilities throughout the county to provide more outdoor opportunities for our residents. Next slide. This past year, our team made great progress on a number of different resilience topics under Goal 5. The county reduced greenhouse gas emissions and electrical costs through energy efficiency improvements. County continues to upgrade outdoor light fixtures to LEDs, totaling 2,651 LED installations at our facilities and parks. Planning, Zoning, and Building issued roughly 2,200 permits for residential and business solar projects in unincorporated Palm Beach County, and another 69 permits for electric vehicle charging stations. To conserve resources, our water utilities department reclaimed over 27 million gallons of water per day for use as landscape irrigation, and FDO continues to install touchless water bottle refill stations to reduce our single-use plastic waste. To educate our communities about sustainability and resilience principles, the Office of Resilience worked to organize a regional conference and also hosted multiple workshops for county, municipal staff, and community members. And these sort of efforts really pay off. For example, Office of Resilience partnered with our municipalities to host the Palm Beach County Flood Workshop, which among other things resulted in a collaborative grant application to fund flood vulnerability assessments in 6 municipalities, which was recently awarded to the tune of $1,086,000. And that came from the State Resilient Florida grant program. And next, you got it. Our final goal 6 focuses on county agriculture operations. We delivered 48 educational workshops to over 2,200 sugarcane, rice, and vegetable farmers and plant nursery operators. Topics included pest weed identification with science-based control strategies, environmentally friendly BMPs for ag and landscaping operations, recommendations to adopt disease-resistant varieties, and other improved crop management practices. As always, our priority is to keep our ag workforce safe. And this includes field workers, heavy machinery operators, our workers in the sugar rice mills and the vegetable packing houses, and then also the crews working in the lawn, ornamental, and landscape installation sectors. And to this end, we delivered 99 training events to over 1,700 clients. And we also delivered about 2,600 continuing education units that support state-required licenses and certifications related to worker safety. So my comments so far have been on the commercial side of agriculture, but we also focus on the general public to teach our residents how to grow beautiful plants and how to create environmentally friendly home landscapes. In FY23, we delivered 239 urban hort teaching events to roughly 5,600 residents. These efforts covered homeowner-friendly topics like vegetable herb gardening, low-input, Florida-friendly landscaping principles, gardening for wildlife like birds and pollinators, butterflies, indoor specialty plants, and so on. We also supported the Western Palm Beach County Farm Bureau with $25,000 grant funding for their Sweet Corn Fiesta last year. This is a family-friendly event that attracted roughly 5,000 visitors and distributed about 53,000 ears of sweet corn to the public. Just to save the date, April 28th, that's the last Sunday of April, is going to be the Sweet Corn Fiesta this year. Next. As FY24 unfolds, our team is prepared to deliver more educational programs and environmental appreciation events for the benefit of our citizens and visitors. We'll continue to implement our county government programs that enhance and protect our environment through cross-department collaborations. Next. Palm Beach County government and the citizens we represent have consistently supported environmental preservation. So this slide here highlights some historical milestones that intentionally address the important connection between healthy environments and healthy communities. And these milestones include passing bond referendums to address environmental stewardship, building nature centers for our citizens, constructing water treatment wetlands, and also creating new county departments to lead the charge, which include Environmental Resources Management, the Office of Community Revitalization, and the Office of Resilience. Our Environmental Protection CDT is proud to continue this tradition of environmental stewardship in Palm Beach County. Next. In closing, we thank our county commissioners and we thank our county administration for your attention today and also for your continued support for environmental preservation in Palm Beach County. If you have comments or questions, we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter.
I just wanted to say thank you, Ron. Thank you for
Appreciate it.
everything you do. Thank you. And I just wanted to, I guess, follow up since you're here. Has staff been able to work with you on the, I guess, things going forward with the Ag Enhancement Council and the Building Department to try to find that good balance of a path forward for our residents?
We're in discussion, but we haven't really hit a strategy. If you'd like to join in with us and provide your guidance on that, greatly appreciated.
That'd be amazing. And please keep myself and if anyone else like the dates. when that would
Understood.
be.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions? They're all looking through their pages. So I don't see any more lights lit at this time. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And thank you, Madam, that concludes strategic planning.
Perfect. What's next?
I'd like to thank staff for all their hard work, Keith and Marcella for your hard work and leadership in keeping this train on the track.
Thank you.
So we do thank you and all of staff for their cross-training. It takes a lot. Department heads for being patient, because it does take a lot of time to meet and pull all of this information together. But I think you agree with me. This is a wealth of knowledge that we have here. So this is what we've done. We're reporting to you that we've done in the last year. This was a vision that I see came true, and it is providing the information because, again, we're short on marketing what we do. This helps us market and ensure that the public is well aware of what staff is doing on a day-to-day basis. So again, I'd like to thank my outstanding, awesome staff, all of them on the cross teams, and I do appreciate it because you save us money in the long run.
Commissioner Baxter.
Is the budget, what is the next
We're
at the budget?
budget.
May I suggest and see how my fellow board members feel? This has been a lot of information and a long day, and we have two commissioners not here, mayor and commissioner, excuse me. Do we really want to start this process today or potentially maybe find another day with fresh eyes and fresh?
How about we
Okay.
see what Commissioner Weiss has to say, and then we'll have a little bit of discussion about that. Commissioner Weiss, since your light is on.
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with this latest comment. I just wanted to let you and your staff know, I mean, I believe this is really, what you're doing with these cross-departmental teams is world-class in what you're doing in breaking down these silos. You know, when you see the breadth of who's interacting, of all these departments, and not only do they get the opportunity to really understand the subject matter, but to lend from their own specific knowledge areas, be able to, I believe, help make these programs the best possible that they can be. So it's hats off to the staff here and the leadership on this, because this is really, I've never seen anything like this before. And so I think and I believe it's really making a difference in improving the quality of the work product that comes out of this county. And hopefully it transforms into, as we see in the survey, that people do believe the quality of life here. Obviously there's concerns, but that we still need to address, but that this is a great place to live and to have a business.
Thank you. Any other questions? What Commissioner Baxter said in reference to us continuing this conversation at another time, I do want to remind the board that the mayor won't be here next month for either the regular meeting or the workshop. So I don't know what other opportunity we would have to go through this information. So if it please the rest of the board, I realize we're 5, not 7, but I think it's information that we need to get in a timely fashion. And I would encourage our mayor and Commissioner Bernard to watch this segment of the workshop at another time.
Would you mind a brief restroom break?
Not at all. So let's take about a 10-minute break.
Thanks.
Thank you.
thought Lisa was trying to weasel out of sitting next to me for this budget presentation, but she's not.
Okay. Administrator Baker, what's next on our agenda?
All right, we're gonna, this is the last piece of our overall budget process that we sit down with the board after strategic planning, cross departmental teams to share with you what has been done in the last year. And then we're gonna walk you through our budget for '24, the process and how it goes. Of course, I have with me my Sherry Brown, our Director of OFMB. We have Alicia, who is our budget manager, and we have Lisa that's sitting back here because she's going to walk you through our digital budget book. And we're still, Commissioner Baxter, researching and working very closely to come up with another program, but this digital budget book, which is online, will give you, anybody, all the details of every department within the county that we fund. So I want to start out, we talked about our strategic priorities. I did not hear any direction on modifying it, with the exception of maybe a subcategory for homelessness to separate those two. So we'll keep them as is, but then we'll be breaking down the information that will provide the homelessness. And what it really is housing, as Mr. Green stated on yesterday. It's just people that need housing. And so we're going to try to refrain from calling it homelessness or homeless resource center to housing resource center. So we're going to move forward with that.
Hold on one second, Commissioner Baxter.
Hi. Question and comment. So you said subcategory. So are we going to make homelessness or housing under multiple areas? Or how did you perceive
No, we were
that?
going to keep it in that one category unless the board wants to have 7 categories. And in that way, we just split them off. And we just deal with homelessness as a priority and then the housing.
I would think that's a good discussion for the board. And before we do that, Commissioner Woodward, is the question in relation?
It is.
Okay, go right ahead.
I am in agreement with separating, because it seems like the homelessness issue and that type of housing is a separate category. And if we were looking more towards affordable or workforce attainable housing, also with the overdevelopment concerns that came to us from citizens. So I don't know if that would be its own like housing development, which would also really kind of include zoning changes that we're doing for commercial. So that part of development with housing, just food for thought to move forward with that. Because I don't think that affordable housing, workforce housing and development and homelessness are as intertwined as we think. So
That works for us. So we'll set up a 7th strategic priority that will be dealing with just homelessness. And then the others will deal with the housing. And part of the zoning aspect also is in the infrastructure portion to ensure that we've got proper infrastructure in place.
And that was my next question, was the infrastructure part of this. I think we can all agree that all of this kind of comes, we need to have a good infrastructure to implement a lot of these workforce and affordable housing. And I know you've said before that we just have the priorities and none of them really have some sort of preference. So I would like to ask my board, is it of your preference that we do have something like infrastructure to really, so the rest of these are implemented in a very thoughtful way? Can we make it like a super priority? Again, I don't know what the answer is, but what I'm saying is it is so important. How would you guys like to do that?
Okay, Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. It's an interesting idea. I think my concern would be if you try and rank one over the other. I mean, my reality is that I see is that things are changing. And so to put a priority, I mean, because and quite frankly, they all pretty much interact with each other. If we don't have economic development, then housing, environmental protection, infrastructure, public safety, all are going to be impacted by that. If we don't have public safety, then that's going to impact economic development. because people aren't going to feel safe to be here. In the same way, if our environment, if the environment becomes a lower priority, then potentially, I see them as co-equal priorities, in that they, at times one may get more emphasis or more funding, but then the concern would be over the long term. If they're not all on the menu, they may not get the same level of attention. So that'd be and the same thing. I mean, you even go down, if we're not caught, I mean, we saw what happened here in the case of substance use with the pill mills, and with that happening, now that, we seem to have a lid on the pill mills, but then what's going to be the next thing? We had fentanyl, now what's coming next? And the same thing, I think it's, and then as you guys said, you mentioned, or actually earlier, with the public safety and substance, and I have a very hard time because, and that would be my sense, I like having them as the silos, but they all, not silos, because they all do work together, but I do like them having them as co-equals, that they are. And when I talk to my constituents, I believe being able to say to them that these are the county's priorities, and because individually they all have individual priorities as well. And someone will say, well, my priority is housing, and the next person is going to be the environment. And I don't want them to have to say, well, you need to support the environment more than you support housing. And so
Understood, but
I think for me, it's very much
Vice Mayor,
clearer.
I just want to have Ms. Baker, if you don't mind, clarify, how does that affect when we set everything up, so we know what we're deciding? If we were to, I mean, right now they're all equal, correct, for the budget. How would that affect everything?
You're going to give me, hopefully, direction today. We're going to lay out our budget process. If there is something in here that you don't want, you need to tell me that, because this board has changed from prior boards and priorities, right? And so as we go through this, if you now want, let's say, certain roads, because that's been an issue, to be a major priority in the capital plan, then you need to tell me that, right? We have a 5-year capital plan. We're going to walk you through that. We walked through some of this over the period of time, but you'll tell me what your priorities are. These are our strategic priorities. All of them are priorities, and it's a matter of what we're putting in each of those. So we'll look at, like, we know for a fact that there are certain roads, because of development, we're behind. And I don't believe that the public knows that we no longer are in a position where we can do true concurrency, traffic concurrency. The legislature killed that. In addition, the legislature also came back and said we could only update impact fee study every 4 years. So once we adopt it, if we don't adopt it at the 95% and we phase it in, we're getting further and further behind. So what I've heard from some residents is, you knew we were coming, you approved this, why didn't you have the infrastructure in place? So it comes with the dollars. And so I believe whatever amount of funding that we have, we go through it, we present it to you, and we try to make sure we're hitting all of the priorities. So again, it is up to the board. If you want to tell me you only want to spend in certain areas, that's an issue for the board. But as the surveys show, we've got some areas people are very, very concerned about, and housing is one of them.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes, thank you. I somewhat agree with what you're saying for prioritizing, but instead of maybe prioritizing, us identifying areas that we are doing well and we need to maintain. So even with the opinion survey, the public is relatively happy with some areas, and we don't want to drop that off. So we still have to maintain a certain level when it comes to a certain of the, you have the report, so we know which ones are which. But then there's others that the public's saying, is a priority, and we should maybe rank that as it needs improvement. So not so much that it ranks as number one, but we're trying to kind of balance all of this out. So I don't want to get to a point where we're dropping off where the public is happy. We're doing a good job in these areas, and they still need to be funded, and we have a good plan in place. But, recognizing that there's certain areas that we can improve and focusing in that direction.
And would we bring back part of this is in here, but when we come back to you as scheduled in June after your direction today and may give us some different direction, we hear you, and it'll be primarily in the capital program. So we want to maintain what we currently have. We're not going to a zero-based budgeting and starting all over again. We are looking at budgets, depending on how much our revenue increases and what we're going to be recommending to you. So I 100% agree with you that there are areas if we've got extra funding, we can put into those, but maintain what we have that the residents are extremely happy about.
Good.
Well, may I go? So I absolutely agree, 100%. Like, I think, yes, the things we're doing great, maintaining them, and the resident survey, I mean, two of the top things were, I believe, the workforce or affordable housing issues and the infrastructure, just being kind of top. We have been focused on workforce housing, I feel like, for the past year, nonstop. But I don't want us to also forget about the infrastructure that comes along with that workforce housing, because I think they're both, and not to say we should forget the other ones, but this is something our residents are telling us, and we feel the impact of on a daily basis. So to me, I love that idea of let's maintain the things that people are happy with, and our residents spoke in a survey. And, I don't know how that will overall affect your budget. I would love to know, but if we did emphasize those, how would that affect the overall budget?
We're gonna kind of walk you through this, and then it depends on how much revenue we have coming in that has not been committed on where we put the additional revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So it does sound like, though, that we want housing as its own and homelessness as its own. So that now gives us 7 priorities. And housing and infrastructure all tie in: housing, economic development, infrastructure, housing, economic development, infrastructure. I don't want to put all 3 of those together, but the 3 of them really are components that all work together. So
Intertwined.
So when we talk about infrastructure and we're talking about economic development, infrastructure is a subset of that. When we talk about housing, housing is a subset of that also. So I think we're never going to lose the fact that infrastructure is a priority with us. And I believe as we work through the process more, it will be something that will be under more than just one category. But I think as a board, and homelessness now becomes its own. So we now have 7.
Thank you.
Is that any other comments on that one? No. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
So we want to highlight on our second page, budget highlights for 24, the fiscal year we're in, starting October 1 of 2023 to September 30th of 2024. Our millage rate is 4.5, which was lowered for the second consecutive year. For this year, our total gross budget is $7.9 billion, of which $2.2 billion is in the general fund, where the board has the most flexibility. Also, it included a 6% across the board pay increase for employees, and I do thank the board for your support in doing so. Includes $15 million annual allocation for housing, up from $10 million in 2023. So we do appreciate that. Those are the budget highlights. Now I'd like for Lisa to kind of walk you through our fiscal year 2024 digital budget book. We utilized national firm ClearGov in order to do that. There are a number of counties and cities that use this particular method in order to put it on. And I'd like to give staff accolades on the fact that we actually had our detailed line item budget online before the state required it. Lisa.
Okay, thank you. This is our fiscal year 2024 budget website. We have this same website for every fiscal year as a link under the OFMB website. So it's readily available to residents, employees, to anyone who wants to see it. On this website is, as Virginia mentioned, the line item budgets. We are required to post them at different points in the process, and we do always meet those requirements. Also, down here on the right side, you'll see every meeting that we have for the budget is listed, and all of the backup documents that we provide are posted here on this website. Once the videos are available, we then link those. On your desk this morning, you received a copy of the budget fact sheet, the budget in brief, and the annual budget document, the hard copies. So I want to show you that they are, in fact, posted here as well. But what I really want to focus on is the digital budget book, which is the digital version of the printout that you got on your desk this morning. It's about 470-something pages, so it is quite large. But when you click on the digital budget book link, it takes you to this ClearGov website that basically has the whole book broken out into different categories that are easy to navigate, so you don't have to flip through all the pages to find it. They're all categorized here under the different categories that we thought made the most sense to organize them. So every page that's in the budget book is also here. So it is available this way. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just kind of wanted to show you. Where it gets really exciting is under the sources of funds. And I know I'm kind of a numbers geek, but the sources of funds here shows you that the revenues were $7.9 billion almost. And this also shows you the history as well. We don't have 2023 actuals yet. They're still working on those, but we have the actuals and the budgeted for the years back to 2016. So this, you'll see a slide later that breaks out the 24 number by the different revenue sources, but this is just a different way to show it. So here's a description of all the different revenues, some write-ups. This is a pie chart that kind of ties to what you're going to see in a few minutes. And then when you get down here, this is, they call it a mountain chart, and it has everything broken down by year and by the different revenue sources. And if you don't like the mountain chart, you can click on and get this kind of chart and this kind of chart. So it is interactive in that way. Under each mountain chart that's in the book is a spreadsheet breakdown that is all of the line items that go under each of the categories. I'm not going to scroll through this because it's very long, but that's, you know, what's under the revenue. So but it's all there and available for anyone who wants to see it. I then broke it down into the different types of funds. So there's one for the general fund, and it's organized the same way. They're all organized the same way. So here's that $2.2 billion that we talk about. Same kind of charts that we have for each one with the spreadsheet breakdown. When you get to the uses of funds or the expenses, there's only one for this one, but it does get broken down later, and I'll go into that. So this is just all the different funds and what percentage each fund type is of the expenditures. And again, here's the mountain chart that shows the history, and then underneath the mountain chart is the spreadsheet breakdown that has all of the line items that make up each one of the numbers here on the mountain chart. So where it gets the most exciting to me is when you get to the departments. When you get to the departments, it's broken down. Each department has its own page. And I'm going to go engineering because it has, why can't I make this work? Okay. Engineering has different funds, and, you know, so they're a good example. They have, you know, their own revenues and their own expenses. So every department has this type of page where it goes over the department information, the mission statement, the overview, the highlights and accomplishments, the issues that they're dealing with in the budget year. And then again, they have the same expenditure summary that existed for the overall budget. And then when you get down to the mountain chart,
it has the spreadsheet breakdown so you can see what makes up each line item for each department. So that, and then underneath the expenses is the revenues, and it's all organized the same way. So it is an interactive tool that allows you to get down into the level of detail that you want. And then after that is the performance measures. And every department has the same set of pages. So then we have a section for capital improvement. And it does show you everything, like it's a summary of the large capital improvement book that you received back in November, but it's required as part of the budget book to have it in the budget book as its own section. So this has everything in it. It has the charts. I don't know why I cannot. It has some charts for you to look at for the capital improvement program. It's not as interactive. We're in the process of implementing this section of the book for 2025, so it'll be a little more interactive next year. Then there's the section for debt, which goes into what the debt requirements are, our overview, and then there's pages for each debt issuance that we have and what the budget is for each one of those. And then under supplemental information is the glossary and the acronyms so that you can learn what our jargon is. And that's really all I have, but we're really proud of it, and we took a lot of time to implement it, so our staff worked very hard on it.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions? Good.
Is there a key for any acronyms or shortenings or numbers, department numbers? Is there a key already in the software?
There is not a key in the software, but I believe our chart of accounts is posted online that you can access, and it has all the departments and how the line items are organized.
If we
If
could
it's
just
not
have it
external, it is internal for sure. I'm not positive.
easily accessible, if somebody's in this software, I wouldn't want them to have to go to a whole nother location to find that key.
I mean, we can add it to it as another page.
That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Moving on, Sherry and Lisa will split this, but I wanted to start at the basic. What is a fund? Because if I had grown up in the budget office, I would know what they were. However, what is a fund? It's a separate fiscal and budgetary entity required by Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, which governs all of us financial folks. Each fund must be balanced per Florida statute. Revenues equal expenditures, no deficit budgeting. And it's used to maintain control over resources that have been segregated for specific activities or objectives. And so we have a chart here that reflects the total budget. It breaks it down to governmental funds versus proprietary, and then breaks it down even further. And so that is why when we speak about how can I allocate these dollars, depending on the source that it comes from and what is the requirement in order to expend those funds the way that the granting entity or state or any charges we assess based upon the ordinance specifically for that purpose. And then the general fund, of course, is where the bulk of the ad valorem funding will be. For 2024, total budget by fund, the $7.8 billion. General fund makes up roughly about 27.4%. Special revenue funds, which would include, grants. It'll also include libraries as well as fire rescue. They make up 22.2%. Debt service 1.1%. Capital projects 27.7%. WUD 11.9%, airport 6.4%, internal service funds roughly about 3.3%. So then we break the budget down by sources of funds. Where do we get this money to fund the budget? We start with our fund balance, and I think that we went through that process with each of you that we spoke with. The fund balance is really dollars you have already allocated to projects, and we bring them forward. okay? That makes up roughly about 42.5% of the budget. Current property taxes make up 23.3. License, permit, and other taxes make up about 5.2. Intergovernmental revenues make up 10.4, charges 8.3, and then the interfund transfers are 10.3. Fiscal year 24 property taxes, that's what people want to know most of all. Of that $7.8 billion budget, $1.8 billion is property taxes. That primarily countywide operating taxes, general fund is $1.3 billion, that's 71.2%. And then we have it broken out on what departments, for the most part, are under funded through that. Fire rescue taxes, operating and capital make up 23.8. Library makes up roughly about 4.7%, and countywide voted debt, which is our general obligation bonds that voters vote to tax themselves for a specific purpose, which is not included in our normal millage rate. There's a separate millage rate for voted debt. So that makes up roughly about 0.3%. Our total appropriation budget for 2024, $7.8 billion. That breaks it down to reserves, which makes up about 20.8%. Did I start that wrong? Public safety makes up 21.9%. General government, 13.1%. Other expenses, 1%. Internal service, roughly about 2.4%. Physical environment, 9.1%. Transportation, about 11.2%. Economic development, 3.4%. Human services, 2%. And culture, roughly about 4.8%. We move on to 24 reserves by fund type. The reserves, total reserves is $1.6 billion. That includes, is made up roughly 23% of that is general fund. Internal service fund is 4.2. Enterprise funds are 11.2. Capital makes up the bulk of it, and that is 41%. Special revenue funds, 20.6, and debt service is very small. For 2024, general fund revenues by category, and we're going to focus on general fund just for a second because that's where the bulk of your flexibility. Of that $7.8 billion, $2.1 billion is in the general fund. Current property taxes make up roughly about 60.6%. License, permits, and other taxes make up about 31%. Fund balance makes up roughly about 21.3%. Interfund transfers, 0.2, charges for services, 2.2, and then the intergovernmental revenues are primarily 12.6%. For general expenses by function in the general fund, the sheriff makes up 31.3% of the general fund. The sheriff who handles corrections and judicial for us, that's another 10.6%. If he didn't do it, we would have to have it done. Other constitutional officers make up 4.7%. BCC departments make up roughly about 23.8%. Reserves makes up 17.5%. Capital and non-departmental makes up roughly about 9.6%. And debt service is roughly about 2.5%. Other constitutional officers make up 4.7%. That's other constitutional is primarily the supervisor of elections. It's our finance comptroller that we work with the clerk on. We have to pay for that. Anything else in there? So that will take care of that. And then we kind of laid out our general fund expenses based upon $2.1 billion in the general fund. We just kind of reflect what we told you before, the sheriff, BCC departments, other constitutionals, CRAs. So as we collect our revenue, we have to pay our CRAs right off the top on the revenue that we collect. So we're hopefully won't see a whole lot more CRAs, but if we do, we'll be working with them to ensure that revenues are appropriate as expenses show up. General fund expenses by department, that's just to give you a feel of by department what we're spending. You don't want me to go through that. And then on page 15, we've got our cumulative percentage increase of Avalorm support, and we show this every year. The red line that you see is our taxable value. You'll see it cross over Tabor back in 2023 and really start to pass Tabor after that. We've got our Avalorm county-funded departments, which is the more aqua color. Then we've got the sheriff, which the gray color reflects the sheriff and BCC combined. And then the black line is Tabor. And Tabor is what we don't hear a whole lot about it anymore, but it's population plus CPI. That gives you a feel of where you may want to be. And then, of course, the green line is the sheriff alone. Then we look at, on page 16, the history of changes in property values and millage rates. And we all want, when property values increase, we want you to not spend all that money and, as taxpayers, return some of it. But you will also hear me kind of caution us on how much we're cutting, because there's a history, and that's what this chart really shows. Property values escalated in the early 2000s. We started to cut our millage rate, and then the market collapsed. And then we had to raise taxes back up. So we're just keeping track of that, and we'll continue to show this model as we go through every budget year, so we can make sure we're keeping you abreast of what we're charting. Employees per thousand population, back in 2008, we actually had roughly about 6,700 employees, so we were at 5.18 employees per 1,000 population. When the economy collapsed, we had to make major adjustments, and we just have not grown our staff back to the level that it was in 2008. We're slowly adding. We want to add, but as you know, a lot of people left. They retired. We don't have as many people in the employee pool. Unemployment rate is really low, and so we work diligently at trying to fill the vacancies that we have. We need those positions, but we're struggling filling them. We're not alone. It's not just Palm Beach County, it is throughout. I talk to my counterparts throughout the country, as well as the state, and I also talk to my partners in the private sector. We're all struggling with positions. They get to pay their engineers and planners a little bit more than the public wants me to pay. So they're a foot ahead. But what I also share with people is that we have, this board and prior boards have allowed us good benefit packages. So it may not be the dollar salary that you get, but our benefits are very good. And when the economy turns bad, we're in a position where we don't have to lay off thousands of people that we see being laid off today. So Palm Beach County is a good place to work. So that is a cheap advertisement for people listening to go to our website, look at our jobs, and if you want to be a part of Team PBC, please go there and apply. Okay, so we're moving on. We've got a budget calendar that we lay out during this time of year so that we can make sure we've adequately met the needs of the board and when we're going to bring things back for your further direction or adoption. And this morning, when you were talking about evaluations, actually we complete our entire budget process with the second public hearing, which is your adoption, and that is September 17 of 2024 this year. So it falls in line with the October date. 2025 budget additional consideration, affordable workforce housing. Continue to build our CIP, continue to build our reserves, and prepare for leveling off of property value increases. So we'll continue to work with you on that. On our capital improvement program, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry, and she'll walk you through our capital improvement program.
Okay, so some of these are the slides we looked at back in November when we talked about our CIP. We have a 5-year CIP capital improvement program. The first year is adopted and included in the budget. The listing of the projects we include in our June and July budget packages, and get any kind of board direction at those times. We like pay-as-you-go as much as possible. It ensures continued operations and reliability and reduces liabilities, relieves more costly and or numerous repairs, and it reduces downtime for programs and services by pre-planning and coordinating the work to minimize service delivery and operational impacts. It allows us to plan for our larger projects, so you'll see that they're multi-year funding. We phase it in with design early on and different things and construction later on. Some of those larger projects will require issuing bonds, maybe getting grants or other revenues. Our project cycles, once a project is approved, the funding carries forward until the project is completed. Most projects are multi-year and completed in phases. Contracts require full funding to be executed. Projects are carried forward as approved by the board. Any additional funding must be approved by the board. Upon project completion, any remaining funds are returned to their original funding source. As we discussed back in November, there's many types of capital revenue. Ad valorem, of course, one of the largest ones, and that's within the general fund. Fire rescue funds their own capital, and library funds their capital. We have our infrastructure surtax. Any of the changes recommended that the staff has, we take it to our oversight committee. It's an advisory committee. They look at it first before we bring it to the BCC for approval. We have our gas taxes used for road construction maintenance, bridge maintenance, and transportation system expenditures, including mass transit. Our impact fees, they're used for the purpose and in the area where the fees are collected. And there's several different types of impact fees. Proportionate share used only in the area where the fees are collected for roadways. There's a dollar for dollar credit for impact fees from developers. Bonds is another revenue source. It has to be used for the specific purpose of the bond issuance. So when we issue bonds, we tell investors what we're going to use the funds for. We have our tourist development tax, or a bed tax. We use those to spend it on our beach preservation and currently to pay debt service on our stadium and convention centers. We get various types of grants. Our building fees have to be used for the building division. Enterprise funds, they have to be used for those purposes also within airports and water utilities. And then there's interest earnings for whatever cash is sitting there. So our total 5-year CIP 2024 through 2028 is $1.6 billion. Ad valorem makes up the largest piece of that funding at 34.3%. Enterprise revenues is about 18.5%. Then you can see a smaller wedge for gas tax, grants, and impact fees. Our infrastructure surtax is about 20% of all the funding within our CIP. Interest earnings about 3.9. We have a proposal in the current adopted plan of $90 million for bonds, and then bed tax makes up about 4.5%. We take that same $1.6 billion and we broke it down by departments. Engineering is about 21.3%. That's for everything, including the 5-year road program. Facilities is 28.6%. ISS is about 4.9%. That's to manage all of our servers and cybersecurity and all those fun stuff that we use every day. County libraries, very small wedge of 1.2%. And fire rescue is about 8.6%. Parks is probably one of our other larger departments at 11.6%. Airports, 5.4%, and WUD about 14.8%. So we included in the package the next several pages, and we won't go through each individual page, but when you start with engineering, engineering is the first section on page 25, and it lists all the detail that makes up that wedge. So You have it in there. I'll let you go through it when you want. And then it moves into facilities, ISS, and all the way around the pie. Okay. And that takes us to slide 60. All of these pages are part of the CIP book that you received back in November, and the book also has additional information that gives a little bit more description of all these various projects, but this is an overview of each of the departments. Okay. All right, so while she's getting there, we'll move on to slide. You're there? Okay, we got it. Slide 60. Now, this is our 2024. This is what was adopted and included in the budget, includes fund balance. Those are the dollars that of projects that were approved in prior years that are carrying forward into 2024. Our 2024 full CIP is $2.9 billion with carry forward or balance brought forward at 78.2%. Then you see ad valorem taxes about 4.9%, which includes general fund, fire rescue, and library. The enterprise funds, gas tax, grants, impact fees, surtax about 4.3%, interest and others about 2.9%, and bed taxes just under 0.5%. And we take that same $2.9 billion for 2024, we break it down to the various departments, with engineering at 24.1%. That's for all of engineering, including the 5-year road program. Facilities is 22%. Go through some of the bigger ones. Parks is 6.8%, water utilities 14.8%, and airports at 10.4%. So we really, we did this slide, I think, for the first time last year, the year before, and we wanted to look at the history of our ad valorem funding for capital. What I always think is interesting with this slide is in 2007, at the height of our budget back then, the general fund funded about $82 million in capital, and then the recession hit in 2008. And for 7 years, we only funded $79 million. So over a 7-year period, we funded less than what we did in 1 year in 2007. And so as we were coming out of the recession, we added the surtax. It was one of the things we sold to voters and said over and over again, it was our goal to always try to build back up what we fund for capital, because we knew we didn't fund anything basically for 7 years. And so that's what we have done. Our 2024 budget really gets us there. And we included $84.6 million in funding for capital. And on slide 63, we break that down into what departments where we put the money. So there's about 9.5% for engineering. Facilities is about 38.2%. ISS 20.7%. Just a little wedge, and then Parks and Recreation or other larger construction departments, about 30% of those. So just to kind of recap that we do have a 5-year CIP. Year one is the year that we adopt. Our current revenue projections are allocated to specific projects. We do have an estimated shortfall of current projects, so there's always options whether we want to increase funding or allocate additional ad valorem, issue bonds, grants, increase revenue sources, or modify or eliminate projects. This is the slide we presented back in November of our estimated shortfall over the next, over the next 5 years. So we're projecting about $750 million shortfall, slightly higher. We just estimated a couple of different numbers from November. Stormwater increased slightly, and same thing with bridge and drainage. But at the same time, we increased some of our available dollars. Like in our surtax in November, we had not got all of our collections for 2023. We do have that, so our estimate increased slightly there. And then same thing for the interest earnings that we've earned on our ARPA response replacement fund. So that gives us $89.9 million to go towards the shortfall. And then this is the slide that we tried to take that and break it down and work with our departments to say, when do you really need it? I mean, it's a 5-year plan. We wouldn't need to fund all of it at one time. So we looked at roads and the $223 million that we need, at $5.5 million in 2024, and then you can see the breakdown for the out years. Same thing with stormwater. There was a need for Shell Rock Road improvements, our bridge and drainage, and then facility and parks is about $132.2 million. So we look at our 2024, what would we need to fund now, and it's about $154 million. And the one thing that's not included in this chart, it's $549 million. On the previous slide, we had $200 million for our South County complex. And it would be something that staff would propose, maybe moving it into year 6 or 7 and not consider it in the next 5 years. But we could, if the board would like to continue with it. So our proposal on how to fund the $549 million would be to issue bonds over the next few years, and I'll get to a couple of slides on debt service, but issue a few bonds at $268 million. Also, when we talked about that we have $85 million in our current, we do believe we should increase what we fund in ad valorem. And as we talked about priorities, that we may not want to rank them, but this is a way that we're saying we need more in infrastructure, so let's add more funding to capital in our budget process. So that's what we would propose, is that in our 2025, we take that $84 million and increase it at least $18 million. We're looking at grants of $100 million. And speaking with engineering, we believe that with our bridges that we should be able to get some grants. And so we have it built in at this point. There is infrastructure dollars at the federal level, and I'm hopeful we're going to get some of it at some point. We do have the $74.6 million available in surtax. Balance brought forward, this is something we haven't done in the most recent years, but in March, we will bring you an agenda item that it's called our mid-year cleanup. We actually look at what did we estimate our budget to end in 2023 and how did it actually end. At that point, we usually have additional dollars that we drop into reserves, but I would propose to the board that we take some of those dollars at $26 million and go ahead and use it this year for for capital. And so that would be a proposal from us. And then we have the interest earnings for our ARPA dollars. And so this would be a way that we could fund the $500 million that we need at this point.
I do want to highlight the fact that it is your first fiscal year, which we're in 2024. Those are actual dollars that we have. The rest of this is projections. So it's not like we've got $549 million sitting in the bank and we've got all of this funded. This is not unusual. This is how you do budgets. And so I just want to make sure that we're all clear that the only real actual dollars, we've got actual dollars, let me rephrase that, but the entire 5-year road program has not been funded. This is a proposal to get it funded in that manner. You know, we talk about other additional revenue sources as well. I do know that the school board is looking to move forward with their sales tax. I've been informed by Richard Ratcliffe that the league is looking to talk about it as well. And that is something that I have not in a full setting talked to my board members about. But that is another option. And I will wait for you to give me some direction on that possibility, or don't even go there. But it is really, it will be put to the voters in November. And at that point, the voters could make a decision. But that's just to keep that in mind as a potential option.
We do have a question. Commissioner Baxter?
Am I beating you to the punch of going over how the bond allocation would work?
I've got a couple. Yes. I got a couple of slides to get you there. So, yeah.
All right, I'll wait then.
You'll wait. Okay.
Thank you. And
So we have a few. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
as for the infrastructure surtax, you just said it would have to be something, it would have to be on this November ballot?
Yes.
There was wording for it?
That is what the school district is looking for, and based on what I heard from Richard Ratcliffe, the cities, some of the cities are also looking for it, so that it doesn't expire.
Right. And our current surtax, we estimate it to end December 31st of 2025, a year early, because we believe we'll have the $2.7 billion collected prior to then.
And while there are individual cities that are in favor of this, the initiative would have to come through the county, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so backing up, we seem to have a lot of questions for our supervisor of elections, but in backing this up, when would the question have to be, as we said, you have 75 words to describe the question and 15 to ask it. So when would all of this have to take place?
We would need to, I have it here. We would need to submit the language to the supervisor of elections if we're going in November, or the school district or anybody else. Would need to submit the language to her office August 2nd.
Commissioner Baxter?
I think it was still on, but I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Today, are you wanting us to decide on South County or anything?
We would like some input when we finish. Let us kind of lay it out, and then we'll give you that option on South County.
The reason I ask is because I believe there's 3 commissioners that use South County, and only one is currently here, so how would we proceed on that? Do we make the decision for them?
Well, it's going to take some time. So what we would need to do is we're going to lay it all out, and then you're going to give us some directions. So we'll come back to the board if we have to on South County, if that's, if the board wants us to, and we'll lay all of that out. There's a study and all that kind of stuff that needs to be done. And so we would need money in order to allocate it to look at South County, and we'll get further input on South County. Prior boards, it's changed over the years, and we've got some history. Dr. Isami will be bringing that to us in February at the February workshop, and then maybe we will have a full board. Well, maybe not, but we'll get with the mayor. So we'll be able to further discuss this. She'll have more information, and we'll be able to talk in specific details regarding South County. That's one of the reasons we pulled it out, and we're only talking about $549 million for the 5-year program.
How long have we been talking, not this board?
Right.
How long has the county in general been talking about South County?
I'm going to look back at Isami. I know that when we started with the infrastructure sales tax, it's a plan, like we do all plans, based on population. But we, I believe, did not fund the first dollar until the infrastructure sales tax. We initially had proposed $39 million back then. It was changed by the district commissioner in which it sits. And it went from, I want to say 39, 36, somewhere in there, to 9 million. And then it went, with the new commissioner that came on board representing that district, it went based on coming back to the board, them telling us what they want. The best estimate we have is the 200 million at this point.
Thank you. I think Isami is
here to assist if needed.
Right? Do you have anything to add?
So it has Ismi Ayala, Director of Facilities Development and Operations. That project has been in the work, I will say, for at least 8 to 10 years. It has had several iterations. Staff has come to the board 5 total times through workshops. My predecessor and I, different times, requesting direction. Initial recommendation from staff was to renovate. We had 3 different iterations of that renovation plan. Eventually, we were directed to pursue reducing the footprint, going vertical, and then the eventual disposition of the property, and that's the plan we brought back to the board a few months ago. At that time, we were given direction to explore funding opportunities or possibilities of funding plan. We're currently working with the design team to see if we can reduce the parking, which will have a significant impact on the budget. They're conducting a parking study as we speak. With that information, we should be able to come back to the board and inform the board if that $200 million price tag
can be reduced, which at this point is an estimate because design has not taken place.
Follow up. And I remember part of that was that we were leasing or selling some space, or no?
The board was presented with several options. I think during the last workshop there was a very clear preference for option number one. That option number one entailed the possibility of disposing, and I'm using that term lightly because the board can actually sell or do a ground lease, for example, a long-term lease, disposing of about, I want to say 11 acres, I'm going on my memory here, but close to that amount, and then using the rest of the property for public uses, for building the new facility.
Was that amount calculated into that overall 200?
No, it was not. The information provided was basically the construction cost. We provided the board an estimate at the time of what we thought the property could be valued at. We are in the process of conducting appraisal so that when we come back, we can give you a more informed overview of what it might be. At the end, the decision if to dispose or lease is also going to drive the conversation. It depends on what the final approach that the board desires is going to be.
Thank you, Esme.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss, you were next.
I just wanted to try and add in to Commissioner Baxter to your question, since I have had the opportunity to sit through a number of these discussions. So, and Isme is right, 100% accurate in what she's describing, but I think my colleagues from previous boards have always felt that we thought that there was revenues available through either the sale or ground lease of that property to offset the costs of the development. And so but we have never seen, I guess, and until the design is done, we can't accurately even understand what that is, and then also go out to the market and understand what somebody's willing to pay. So we don't know what those offsets are, but the past boards have believed that there's substantial offset to the cost, and it's not, ultimately not, would cost out of the budget $200 million, so.
Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. And not to speak for Commissioner Bernard, who's not here, but I do believe there's been discussion, at least with those of us in that office, about public-private partnerships and transit-oriented development, workforce housing. There's a number of interested parties that could potentially help us fund this project. And I know that there was revenue that was discussed before, but it's taken somewhat of a shift as far as actually helping with the capital project instead of just, you know, what we can generate as far as the surplus of the land. So I think that those conversations are also happening, which is why, not to speak for my fellow two who use the office, but we're comfortable pushing it back until we can maybe find the best solution to help pay for it. But we need to have this discussion when they're here, so.
Commissioner Baxter?
Just responding, when we went over, because I asked so many questions, we didn't get through the whole budget. But when I was asking about the bond allocations, which is why I was asking, and just something that 10, 20 years keeps getting pushed off, everyone just kicks the can, like, not my problem, deal with it later, and then other boards end up where we are sitting here today. I thought it was interesting, and don't want to steal your thunder, Sherry, whoever is covering it, but we would actually kind of end up in the same place. Worst case scenario, if we got $0 in selling the land and zero revenue from any other income, we would still not be any worse off than we are today with the 200. So, but I want them to explain that because I am not the expert. Thank you.
I actually have a couple comments myself. One, I know we were also waiting to find out if the Department of Health was going to be contributing at all to this building, because when you gave us the price tag of close to $70 million for their portion, I think it was $70 million for their portion in the $200 million, I think all of us here were a little stung by that amount of dollars. Second, if we do dispose of or do a ground lease of any of our property, that would have to be an RFP procedure, correct? We can't, I know there are people that are interested in that have come in and brought us proposals, but we cannot do a single do this kind of thing. Okay, RFP for either a ground lease or an actual sale of the property. And the other question would be the tower that's on there that takes so much property, could that possibly go on a building and free up the land? So we would have more land? Is that, that takes up a lot of land.
Those in order, if I may. Part of what we're going to bring back to the board when we come with the funding plan is the feedback as to the meetings we already had with the stakeholders. So after we came to the board in the workshop meeting a few months ago, we went back based on the direction given and met with all the stakeholders. As it refers to the health department, I think I have a confirmation that no, they don't have the means of funding a portion of the cost. But furthermore, in having conversations with the county attorney's office, there is also an obligation for the county to assist with those health facilities. Second topic was the possibility as to if we were to dispose our lease, do we need to do that through an RFP? And the answer is yes. And then the third topic, as part of the workshop meeting that we had a few months ago, we brought to the board an analysis of the communication tower and the different options that could have been considered. Our consultants, who are experts in the communication field, I'm certainly not, had identified what will be an optimal radius for that communication tower to be without affecting communications, service of the public safety radio system. And they provided that information to the design team, who concluded that installing the communication tower atop of a building could certainly be done from the engineering perspective, but will result in an increased cost. Okay, so their recommendation was to keep it, and they proposed several conceptual options within the footprint aligned so that it will not impact overall operations. I will also like to highlight that the design that was provided, conceptual, by the design team took into account transit operations along with the city.
Thank you. All right, no more lights are lit, so let's continue.
Okay, so just a reminder that this is our estimate. Just like we said with revenues, things may change. In the next several slides, so let me just, before we move on off of this slide, so roads is 23.2 million, and it's broken down from year to year. So when you go to slide 67, which is the next slide, got it? It shows you that detail, and I know it's a terrible way to present. It's a lot of information on a slide, but you can see there's a key with it too. I'll take the second line since I can read that one easier. So 60th Street, 140th to 120th. There's $3 million in 2024 proposed, which is, the D is for design. In 2026, another $5 million for the right-of-way. And then you see the construction out in 2028 for a total project of $31 million. So that's kind of the key in the breakdown of the $223 million on this chart. So we would be looking at $5.5 million to update the current year budget. And we do that for each of the lines on the next several pages. You have your stormwater projects detailed, the $132.2 million for facilities and parks is also included here. There's a lot of there's 100 small projects for almost $12 million. And then on pages 70 through 73 is all that kind of detail, which we wanted to make sure that was included in our presentation. Then we'll talk about our debt service. So our current year in 2024, what we currently have budgeted for debt service is $81.2 million, and that's funded from several sources. So our general fund makes up $55 million of that. Our bed taxes is about 12.3, and that helps to fund our convention center debt and our ballpark debts. Transportation Improvement Fund, there's a small bond still outstanding from a bridge that was done years ago. And then our two baseball teams, well, the four teams, but the two stadiums, they also contribute to the debt service for their ballparks. and the state contributes $4 million a year to go towards the two stadiums. So our total annual debt service is 81.2, and you can see what the projection is for the total by 2029. It drops to 54.6, but of course, you know, since we're talking about CIP and general fund is the biggest funder, we'll go to the next slide, which shows just the general fund piece. So if we issue any non-ad valorem bonds, which means it's not a general obligation bond, it does not have its own millage rate associated with it. This is funded out of our general fund. Our current general fund funding for 2024 is $55 million. There's a slight drop in 2025 of about $1 million, and then it drops about $14 million by 2026. And when you get all the way out to 2029, you know, our debt service projection is about 27.7. So we looked at the three issues that we proposed on the previous slide of $268 million. About $100 million is about 7.7 million of debt service. So if we issue a $100 million bond in fiscal year 2024, the first debt service isn't due till 2025. So we built that into our projections. Again, if we do a bond issue in 2026, that debt service isn't until 2027, so that's 7.7 and all the way out. So we could be looking at debt service currently of $55 million. And by 2029, even with almost $300 million of debt service, it would be about 48.3 million. So we're kind of under. And then what Commissioner Baxter was saying is if I had to issue a bond for $200 million to do South County, it's another $15 million. If you can pull it up. But if we did issue $200 million worth of bonds, you know, an additional $15 million would take us to about $63 million by 2029. It's not extremely different than what we're paying now. So that is an option for the board. You got it? Thank you. So you can see it up on the board now, up on the screen. That would be also that if we issued the bond in 2026 with that 15 million debt service in 2027 and carrying it out. So there's only would be a slight difference between now and 2029. It's hard to see on there.
Yeah, there's one more line item on here that it's not.
It's the 15 million under
South County.
Fiscal year, I want to say 27.
Correct.
50. Okay. Takes us up to 63 and change. Not that
But it's
And
good.
that's the worst case scenario, because if the board deems appropriate when we bring South County back to the board and you give us direction and you want a public-private partnership, whether lease or sell, we recommend lease, we'd have revenues coming in and we would be able to help offset the impact.
Commissioner Baxter, your light is on.
I was going to ask Commissioner Woodward what she thought, because you are the only one who would be, well, not the only person, but the only commissioner here that would essentially be in this building, and the only one really of us. I'd love to hear what you had to say about it, kind of at this point.
Okay, thank you. No, the property itself, it's for anyone that doesn't know, it sits on a tri-rail station. It's a good location, mid-Congress Avenue in Delray Beach. There's a lot of interest in the area. Delray Beach, the city itself, is putting resources into Congress Avenue to kind of up that corridor. There's a lot of interest in adding workforce housing, what they call also workforce retail, for all the businesses sort of getting pushed off of Atlantic Avenue just to higher rents. It's prime for a good partnership and development. So it's definitely a discussion that we need to have. The tax collector, I do believe, is planning to move, but there's a number of other departments that we have there. It's not just the 3 commissioner offices, fleet. Right. It's 14 acres. It's right for development, and we can make some good choices with this and good decisions and be a good partner with the city of Delray Beach as well. So I encourage us moving forward with it, but I think, we can do a lot, and we can definitely go up. I think that they'll support our going vertical and having a smaller footprint for ourselves. So,
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. While we were here, I just did a little, just a a little analysis because I was looking at the 5-year capital improvement plan. And so in there, we have water, airports, fire, and library, which all have their own external funding sources outside of the general. So when I added them up, they were about, and you guys can tell me if I've got this right, it was about almost $495 million for their 5-year projects. And so, with that, if you look at that, I mean, what I did was just, I looked at that and then, so reducing what it was actually coming out of the general fund then for funding these 5, or what's out of our, what's flexible for us, it leaves us with about $1.179 billion. So it changes the percentages, obviously. It's all relative, but for example, because I looked at roads then goes from 21% of what is actually out of general fund money, goes up to 30% of the general fund in the 5-year program. So I think it's important because water utilities, airports, libraries, fire, that's all real money, but they're also being paid for out of different funding sources. So I think that's a really important distinction. And so understanding that in this case, and then so FDO then obviously goes up, everything goes up, in terms of their percentages, but the pie itself, the pie that we should be looking at to me is really 1179 and not the entire 1674. So I know it's
Right.
And I did that while I was sitting here. So, but I think it's important to note that we have we have discretion over those dollars, but they can't be moved outside of where they're coming from.
Correct. Okay, I see no more lights.
Okay.
In conclusion?
You want to wrap it up? Yeah, I'll wrap it up. So we're looking at our 5-year projection, and this includes capital as well as operating. We're looking at our values. You've got your first column, which is our fiscal year 24 budget. It's already set. So we're looking at 25, and we're projecting somewhere about 8%. It could be anywhere between 5 and 8%. We won't know until we hear from our property appraiser. Thank you. But we're budgeting 8% because we don't see a real drastic drop kind of below that. And we'll adjust that as we get more information from our property appraiser. We get our first blush at this from her June 1st, and then she gives the final on July 1. So and she usually gives it to us a little early, so we'll be able to adjust this for our June meeting with you, which is very early. So I'm gonna warn you now, you're gonna have some modifications to what we give you because we won't get that until very late, right before our June 2nd workshop with you. But we're gonna give you our estimate, and we'll be able to tighten it a little bit once we get her June 1st projections on revenue. And then again, we'll adjust it July 1, but by then we'll tell you what it is and the delta, and then you'll tell us what to do with the delta. You'll make that decision. So we've got our revenues, we're projecting at 8% for Avalorum, and then the others will look at history and do the projections on those. On the appropriation side, I think it was 6% that we applied to bottom line, and so therefore we're looking at total revenue at simple majority vote, roughly about $2.2 billion for the general fund for 2025, and then we're looking at roughly about $2.3 billion for appropriations. So we're looking at shortfalls, but that is not unusual. Every year, because these are projections, and we don't tighten them down, I am charged, your administrator is charged with giving you a balanced budget. and then we tell you what, because this is going to go up a little bit. Supplementals are not in here. The sheriff's additional capital is not in here. So as we go through the budget process, we'll be adding these things, and then we'll bring it to you. When I bring it to you, the supplementals, I will show you what we've added, what I recommend to you to consider adding, but I also show you what was not added, so that you'll see the entire request for supplementals from staff, from our various departments, as well as the sheriff, if he submits it.
And sunsetting of grants and staff that go along with that? Do we
I'm
get
sorry?
sunsetting of grants and staff that go along with that?
Yes, yes. Again, when we hire people and they're hired as grant employees, we let them know that when the grant sunsets, then the position should be sunsetting. We have been, especially for very good employees that are grant-funded employees, if we've got openings and they fit that category, we put them in our permanent positions because, again, they've been here, they've been trained, and they're a valuable asset, and so we want to keep them. But the position itself associated with the grant goes away.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter.
Thank you. When they sunset or a grant sunsets and the position sunsets and we're able to find them another spot, do they start all over with their tenure of that,
It
of how long
depends.
they've worked for the county or that position?
No, the tenure doesn't start all over. No. But it depends on what job they go to. Their salaries may be lower depending on the position that they're going in. Or it may be higher. They may get a promotion out of it.
And so I'm in favor of your suggestions. I like what you suggested. So different subject now of definitely putting more of the capital funding towards roads. I think it's a well-needed thing. So unless somebody objects, I would love to see that happen. And then Sherry, you had alluded to, and I vaguely clear on it, something about there was 26 million from something left over that you wanted to put towards capital?
Right, so one of it
the
is
budget
when we do
adjustment.
our mid-year in March, our budget adjustment to, instead of what we would normally drop to the bottom line in reserves, I would propose that we take $26 million and go ahead and move it into our capital plan and fund capital this year.
I would be in favor of that.
And that's what I was
We all would.
referring to.
Right.
Was the mid-year adjustment.
Right.
Right.
Nothing.
And I'm always a big fan of reserves, because, I tell you all the time that FEMA is not going to show up and save us, but, our reserves is what's going to get the debris off the roads and things like that. But I think we have made leaps and bounds over the last several years of building reserves. I'd still like to see it increase slightly, but I also think we should do something with capital. So I'll still.
And we'll have a balanced approach between adding more capital dollars and continuing to make sure our reserves are solid.
I appreciate that follow-up. So, and just because we've been talking about South County for so long, and I be very, very clear, I do not want to spend next year or even the next 2 years, but I think being a little bit proactive, even though I think it's in rough shape, I would love to know if staff could take an analysis of how much West County, how much work it needs. And again, not talking about any sort of budget changing or anything for the following year, but just information.
The Glades
Yes, please.
Administrative
Out
Complex is
there.
what you're referring to.
Yes, I'd appreciate that.
We'll add that to the list.
Isami, you were walking towards us. Is there something you'd like to add?
Good afternoon. Again, just to share that we already have it in the CIP plan, and we already have the Glades, the West County Admin Complex, as part of our CIP plan. We came to the board in 20 and 21 with a master plan that were approved. We have a solicitation on the street, and so to speak, we're negotiating the contract for design services as to the renovation work that is going to be done in that building.
Okay, so I had asked, so thank you for that, and so then that is already part of everything we're discussing?
I don't know what she put in there.
Apologies, yes. It's part of our current planning.
Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward.
And you approved the roofing either today or you'll be approving the re-roofing on next board meeting agenda.
Thank you. I just, Sherry, you stole a little bit of my thunder with the reserves. I know that we need reserves and it's important, but at the slide on page 62 that shows, I think it was a 7-year window where we really weren't investing in capital projects.
Right.
We're there, and I appreciate the work that you put in to find ways that we can get this stuff done. I mean, it's just like on your own home budget when times get tight, but you know, the roof still needs to be replaced or whatever comes along. And before we get too far down the road where we're at critical mass on some of these, like drainage, I know that was one where we don't need to delay. So we need to be investing in the capital. And if it means putting a little less into reserves, but we're actually, you know, maintaining what we have and not letting it deteriorate, I think that that's an important thing for our constituents to know. With their tax money, it's not just saving it, but we have to put it to work. And this, I appreciate the work that you've done here.
Thank you. And also something that we should take advantage of while we have, Clerk Abruzzo's office has invested wisely, and we have interest dollars coming in and at a good chunk, a good clip. And I know a lot of that is you take into consideration throughout the year, but I think the amount that we're possibly going to get this year is going to exceed what our current, knock on wood, tocco ferro, as the Italians would say. But that would be something else that we can either drop into the budget or move into the capital improvement projects.
So, I mean, we do have interest earnings included in our 24 budget. Based on our 23 actuals, we did increase what we would normally budget, where in the old days we may have budgeted like $2 million a year and wasn't too far off on that, like in the general fund. I think our general fund budget is $20 million for interest earnings. And so there probably won't be a significant amount, you know, and things, but we may collect more than what we have budgeted, and we include that in our estimates as we build the 2025. So we already know that it'll carry forward into the 2025 budget. So we account for all of those dollars. And we can't take the interest earnings out of the water utilities department and use it to build bridges and parks and roads and things. So it needs to stay where it stays.
It has to stay in the fund that it's
generating. The general fund is really our most easiest dollars, you know, and things. So, but yes, we keep that in mind.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss?
Yeah, just to add on to that, is that I think we saw, you know, with the rise of interest rates, right, that's what created the opportunity because of the way the money gets invested. And as your, I guess, liaison to the investment advisory. So, you know, getting a 5 and a, you know, before we were getting, 2.5% return on cash, and then now we're up at, 5.25%, 5.5%. Now that, Fed's signaled that they are no longer raising interest rates, we're going to, I think I know we'll see they're locking in on bonds and so forth at about that percentage rate. So we're not going to, we've climbed up, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of the increase like we had in the last couple of years. So, which will make budgeting probably a little more accurate because you won't see the big increases.
Thank you. Okay. What's next? Oh, so fun, Palmtran.
We added Palmtran on just in case the board wanted to discuss Palmtran a little bit more during this session. So we're prepared, and if not, we'll reschedule it as a regular agenda item. But it's up to the board.
What is the flavor of the board? Would you like to hear about Palmtran? Everybody's here. We're here. We might as well go for it.
Could we get the short version? Thanks.
Yeah, we can do speed presentations.
Yeah, go right to the options and let's go from there.
Please.
Okay, let's do that. So just so you know, we're back here because in September at a workshop, our board asked us to come back and share what some of our thoughts would be if the board were to take gas tax that currently goes to Palmtran today and move that to engineering. What would some of those scenarios look like? So Just real quickly, if you go to page 7 of the presentation, you've seen this before, but the history of that tax is in 2011, 2012 was when the shift occurred, so that we backfilled some of the dollars in Palm-Tran during that recession from gas tax and took that from 5-year road program, and it's remained consistent today. So if you get to, on page 8, you'll see just revenue by fund that we have. About $38.9 million today of gas tax goes to engineering. $33.9 million of the total $72.8 million gas tax collected goes to Palm-Tran.
Todd, just a real quick question. Vice Mayor. The 5-year road plan is funded from?
The 5-year road program, it's a combination.
Right, so on slide 8 is a little better detail. So we use our gas tax dollars for the 5-year road program and the road maintenance that we do in the special revenue fund also for engineering.
Well, on page 7, what I'm trying to get at is we have the 5-year road program. It's funded from there at the 43. What was it prior to, where was it funded from prior to using the gas tax dollars?
Impact fees and...
So our 5-year road program in the old days was primarily the gas tax, and we have seen that drop off. So what our gas tax now, our 5-year road program uses gas tax and what some of the different impact fees and those other kind of revenues at this point. So you don't see the...
And the road maintenance, what is that?
That is their engineering department, so that's where they do all the street lights, road and bridge maintenance, and the different...
Also the milling.
So all of these are coming from gas tax?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
That's the breakdown of gas tax through the years from 2007 to
Not
present,
including
how
the
that's being used.
infrastructure surtax dollars that are going.
Yeah, we have infrastructure surtax dollars also funding some of these, along with the gas tax and impact fees and other grants that come in. So it's a myriad of things that fund it. I think we were referring to the gas tax that also helps fund our county transportation trust fund. And that is our milling, and when we go in and resurface roads and we stripe, gas tax dollars are also accounted for that. We changed some things this year so that we could show you what was being fully funded within engineering when it comes to gas tax. And I think page 8 kind of pulls it together because it's more than just the 6 million or 8 million that had been shown.
Question for you is, are there any state and federal requirements for us to use the gas tax dollars in a certain way?
Yes,
Yes.
there are.
And
And those are
what would those be?
prescribed by constitution and also by statute on how those can be utilized. And so you see the funds where transit is not an allowable source of funding, so your state constitutional gas tax and your county fuel tax are dollars that are specific to engineering. The others where you see in the local option gas tax, as defined by statute, it allows for transit to be used, and so those are divided in some cases equally, in others, such as the second to the last one, you'll see where that's between road maintenance and operational subsidy. A little bit more of that is going to Palm-Tran than it does engineering, but the others are divided equally.
And if we were to change the amount of dollars, gas tax dollars, that we're using for Palm-Tran and bring it back to engineering, we are still within the statute.
Yes, yes, you can use those dollars however you want to, as long as it's according to the statutory requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So Lynn?
Please go on.
Yeah, on page 9, Lynn's just going to share our budget with you real quickly, just so you know current. Yeah, sorry.
This is just a summary of Palm-Tran's fiscal year 24 adopted budget. Total budget is $205,247,930, made up of $138 million for operating and $66 million for capital. Our operating expenses go towards our 3 transportation modes: fixed route at $84.2 million, paratransit $53 million, and our Go Glades for $1.5 million. Our revenues, as you know, are made up of ad valorem for $77.9 million, gas taxes $33.9, and our operating grants $18.6 million. The remaining $8.3 million is from fares and other charges for services. Our capital program is supported almost entirely by federal grants, with the exception of approximately $4.6 million that is funded from ad valorem for the replacement of our paratransit vehicles, as well as our South County facility expansion project.
So if we move to slide 12, this is just one of the first scenarios, and we're going to lay out about 5 or 6 scenarios for you and talk them through with you a little bit. And these are not, we're not recommending any of these. These are just scenarios that we're putting out there based on direction from the board to come back and share with you. So this would show you a service reduction on scenario 1 on page 12 of what a reduction would be to some of our lowest performing routes that we have, our 8 lowest performing routes, and you can see each of them and by name. And what we show you is sort of their annual hours of what we have in each of those routes, the annual cost that each of those routes cost PalmTran, and then the productivity. That's the number of riders per hour on those. So those are our bottom performing routes that we have. We wanted to share this, and it's about a savings. It would yield about $9.8 million to reduce this particular scenario. But what this does do is it leads to the elimination of about 57 budgeted positions. So underneath it, you see that number of operators, supervisors, maintenance techs, and utility workers starting with the number 41. That would be the corresponding reduction in staff that would go with that. We shared with you also the current vacancies of 27 vacancies in total that we have with operators, supervisors, technicians, et cetera. And so you would see that it would require the potential layoff of about 30 positions to get to this point. It would also have some significant impact on riders in our system, and it would reduce some of the ridership that we have system-wide. We've got in the first quarter of 2024 about 69,000 plus trips that were completed on these particular routes that traverse across the county, and it's a cross-section of those that include the Palm Beach Gardens Mall, the Intermodal Center in West Palm Beach, the airport, FAU, and some others. And then to share with you too, in those routes, within about a quarter mile of those routes, we have about 91,000 jobs. Those routes provide access to individuals getting to that number of 91,000. One of the things too, because of the size of this particular reduction that would be required of us to do would be a Title VI analysis that we would need to complete. We do those Title VI analysis a number of times. I mean, that's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, where it talks about what types of disparate reductions when you're making in transit are you doing to low income and minorities, and to provide that. So when we come back next month, when you'll see on the bottom of this chart the May 2024 service changes, when we came in September and provided some reductions and some consolidations of routes, we did that with those 3 routes. That's what we recommended. The board said okay. We went to our PalmTran Service Board. They gave it its blessings and then went to some of the municipalities. With that, we also did the Title VI analysis. And because we're also looking at doing the pilot program for our TNC pilot, that sort of offsets some of those changes. And so under that Title VI review and analysis, it equalized some of that out because it was showing how we were providing at least some additional service on doing that. So we would go through that analysis if this was the direction that the board wanted to go on fixed route, because it is a fairly sizable amount, and that's what our policies in the county and what FTA would call for in doing a deeper dive and review of these for any potential reductions of this magnitude. Okay, so just wanted to share that with you. Also wanted to share too that elimination of these routes also is a reduction in fare collections. It's a reduction in ridership, and as you know, ridership, we've mentioned this before, is what we use in order to get our federal drawdown. So when we have fewer riders on our system, our federal funds that we get also decrease, because that's based on that population of ridership. So that was the first scenario that we wanted to share, which shows you about a reduction of $9.8 million. It brings our overall operating expenses down to about $128.9 million. So that's that corresponding scenario 1 reduction. We also put forth a scenario 2 on page and slide 14. So on this particular slide, we do something that's a little bit lighter. We've got 3 additional routes, which are the 3 bottom performing ones after the reductions that we're bringing to the board in February on those May 2024 service changes. This is a little bit more modest of $3.5 million. Still would have to, do the same type analysis that we talked about. But we provided this scenario because this was one that, while eliminating 10,000 monthly trips and 19 positions, including 15 operators, it would avoid the need to cut any union positions and eliminating of these particular routes, because we have some of those vacancies today, and we could maybe absorb some of the other ridership and could maybe help us with some of the overtime costs that we have as well. I mean, operators on some of the other ways. So obviously a little more modest scenario, but wanted to share with you what a scenario would be without doing any kind of layoffs that we have in that system. Again, about a $3.5 million reduction. We'll move to slide 16. This is a third scenario that we provided, and this is paratransit. And paratransit, as we've discussed, is a very expensive service that we provide, and we've broken it down to you in the sort of 3 tranches of paratransit. Our ADA service that we provide, our DOS service, which is our Department of Senior Services. That's where we mostly fund seniors that are going to our meal sites in our county, so our senior centers where we pick up seniors, drop them off there for meal deliveries. You can see we do about 43,000 trips a year and pay for that in PalmTran. And then our TD, which is, those who are either have medical necessities or meet certain income guidelines. We do about 108,000 trips a year on that at a cost of $5.4 million. So if we reduce the service area from today, which today the service area is countywide. We provide paratransit and these services countywide. So anybody anywhere in Palm Beach County can get picked up and get dropped off anywhere that they'd like. Under the federal guidelines, that they only require us to pick up within 3/4 of a mile of our existing fixed routes. And so, as you can see, we've said under ADA, the cost per trip, the total trips today are close to 800,000 trips. It's a big number, but we do about 3,000 to 3,500 or so a day of these trips, serving 8,490 customers. We have about 20,000 customers in our system, but really about 8,500 of them are active. The others are more of a safety net that they have this particular service for if they need to use it. But the trips that are not within the 3/4 mile corridor total 274,000 plus trips, and 4,646 customers reside in that area or take those trips in that area. So if we just pared back our paratransit service to only the 3/4 mile of the existing fixed route, we would reduce those costs by about $13.9 million. And our new ADA cost would be roughly $26.5 million with that reduction. And it would leave a significant amount of coverage for a number of those trips, the 274,000 ADA trips and the 36,000 Department of Senior Service trips that we have today. I mean, currently there's no limit in the number of DOS and TD trips that we provide. We overmatch the grants for TD that we get from the state, which is roughly $3 million in grants that we get, and we put in $2.5 million, so we're able to do that. A lot of other properties, when they run out of TD funds, they no longer provide trips anymore. They just stop the service. So those are options as well that you can look at. When we talked to you in September, we talked about looking at a little more deliberate approach to our paratransit, and the board said, hey, let's look at that and be very meticulous and come back to the board over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years as we map this out, just to make sure, because we know that this population is extremely affected and needing population of this type of service. Many of those people don't have other ways to get around, and they rely on the paratransit service that we provide today. be it an expensive service and a costly service. As many of you know in your districts, we have a lot of people with different needs, whether it's elderly, income, or some types of disabilities that they have. So budget reduction scenario number 3 just deals with paratransit, and that's about an $18.2 million reduction. Sorry.
Commissioner Baxter, you have a question?
In these scenarios, did you happen to do the cost analysis of just using the paratransit vehicles versus the large buses?
Yeah, so we didn't do the specific analysis if we were just to take, I mean, we don't, just so you know, under ADA, DOS, and TD, we only use our paratransit vehicles for those trips. Are you referring specifically on the fixed route side of it, if we use the...
So you were talking about in scenario 1, eliminating positions, and I was asking prior to today, what would happen if instead of just using these large buses for a couple people, what would the cost savings be using the paratransit bus? And I will, since we're on the topic, make the statement that the paratransit to me, yes, as it may be a slightly more expensive or of a use, it is used. I mean, it is helping our handicap, and it is helping people who truly need it. And I guess I'm just not in favor of asking them to get off that and then try to manage to get on a big bus, to manage to get off that and potentially get another paratransit the rest of the trip. I'm not quite sure about that. But the overall usage, right, for our taxpayers' dollars, I think are better spent on an actual service that is used. So the idea of the larger buses that drive around empty, if not almost empty, seems like a no-brainer. But I was trying to ask, what if we took those and we didn't spend it on the large buses and the large amounts of fuel and driving around all day? What would that look like?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. Actually, when we look at our costs for fixed routes, 70% of the cost is for salaries. So the reduction would not be significant. Fuel, maintenance, all of those things only make up about 30%. And a huge portion of that, too, is our fixed buses are, if you were to move these union positions into paratransit buses, you wouldn't see the cost savings that you're currently seeing. Our paratransit is contracted costs, so that independent contractor takes care of all of that piece of it. So unless you're also getting rid of the positions and the bus operators who manage those routes, the savings would not be significant.
Would they be, would they be eligible to apply for one of our over 800 open positions? Or are they a different?
You're talking about countywide?
No, if we were to make that decision of savings today, and then they, is there a way, or would they be eligible to apply to another Palm Beach County position?
I mean, I think, positions in our county, and the administrator will tell you, are, many of them are very specific based. They're based on, experiences, education, training, et cetera. So, I mean, we've got lots of professional level positions. And as the administrator indicated earlier, when we talked about grant funded positions, if there are like positions that meet certain skill sets, then there's potentially opportunities for operators in our county. We're limited in the number of operators that we have. Outside of PalmTran, we have a couple positions. I would say a couple. We do have positions that are like CDL license type positions where they use, but it's not a large number. And I'm not aware that there are a lot of vacancies in some of those. I'd also share, too, that our larger buses in fixed route require CDL licensing, whereas our PalmTran connection buses do not. So different types of operators in those, and those that usually do our fixed route have higher licensing and different training as well. So sometimes not necessarily apples to apples on that, but and our service that we provide in paratransit is all contracted service. They're not internal employees. They are all contracted and work directly for the providers of whom we contract with today.
I'll wait for
But we can do a deeper dive and look into that. If you want to see those numbers, we're happy to sort of get in there and crunch in there a little bit to just show you, whether or not, and we do have varying sizes of buses too. I mean, even on our fixed route, some are slightly larger and smaller than others. Maybe they're not as small as the paratransit, but we can try to work as best as we can to get you the information that you're looking for in a little more detail.
Thank you, Todd, and I'll wait to hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you, Commissioner
Vice
Weiss.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can I?
Administrator Baker?
I want to again introduce our contract interim director, Mr. Blaylock, who has a lot of history on properties, transportation properties, and has worked with Clinton over the years, Mr. Forbes over the years, and so he wants to add something to this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a lot to say, but I know we want to get out of here. I would say that, and I would recommend to this board seriously, that any kind of savings that we can identify, we definitely need to reinvest in the current system. Now, I'm looking at the system now. One of the charges I have been given is to do a full assessment of the system, and any innovations, any savings that we can identify, make it known to the administration, and I plan to do that in addition to trying to run the day-to-day operations. But just already, I've got the team working on some of the areas that I have already identified, particularly in the paratransit, as well as the fixed route. So, because some of the services we have is not very attractive. I mean, think about it. You got to go somewhere and you got to wait an hour for a bus. That doesn't work. And you have a beautiful county, a growing county, and you have a lot of areas that does not have proper access. So listening to your residents' survey earlier today, I mean, it was very clear. The infrastructure, mobility, and all those things are very important to this community. So I would just give me a few minutes, a few hours, and we'll work this thing out and bring some recommendations that we think we can uphold.
Thank you, Mr. Blaylock. I don't know who was next, Marcy or Greg. Greg, why don't you go ahead? Commissioner Weiss.
Yeah, I'm ready. So, a couple things. One is, I appreciate you all taking the time to look at this, but I think it's important to put on the record that on a per capita basis, we spend the least of anyone in the state of Florida and practically around the country. On a per capita basis here, we spend about, on operations of PalmTran, about $48, whereas Miami-Dade spends $142, Broward spends $71. You go across the state. The only one even close to us is up in the city of Orlando, and they're there. If you start looking across the country, Jackson, Mississippi spends more than we do. So I think we need to put it in perspective, not saying we don't need to try and save money, but the other point is when we start taking fixed route buses off the road, we're putting cars on the road. And we're struggling now with traffic. So I'd like to see in any future discussions that we have that we understand how many cars we're going to be putting back on the road. As we're trying to deal with congestion, this will add to that because these people still have to go where they're going to go. And now we're saying we're not, and I honestly, if we really want to get people off the road, you've got to have a transit system that is timely. I think, you're looking at headways of, 15, maximum of 20 minutes, because if you're not on that bus, you can't wait an hour, you can't wait a half an hour. I mean, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the very max. But if you really want to try and get people out of cars, we've got to have a better service. And I think that's one of the things that's lacking. And I don't think it needs to be in the higher density areas. And I mean, you're an expert on this, so I don't, and I'm sure you're going to look at it. But I think it's important both for the public to understand that, if we eliminate the fixed routes, it is going to put more vehicles on the road. So at the same time, they're complaining to us about traffic. by doing any kind of elimination, we are going to be, in fact, putting cars on the road. And the other thing to mention about where we live, it's very expensive. And going from being able to ride on a bus for a few dollars to having to own a vehicle, that's going to put even more people potentially in becoming homeless. Because operating a vehicle in the state of, in southern Florida where we live, it runs about $1,000 a month. Between when you talk about the cost of owning the vehicle, the cost of the insurance, and the cost of operating that vehicle. So it's going to put pressure on other things that we're doing, and I think we need to really look at the totality of any kind of changes that we make and the impact it's going to have on our residents and on our infrastructure and all the other programs that we're running.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. I feel like I'm just behind everyone today. I have notes, but everyone's stealing them. Thank you, Commissioner Weiss. What I wanted to point out again, fixed route buses are what gets the most cars off the road. And in South County, I know we have a number of routes that's 1 an hour, and we're never going to be able to grow ridership when we are not having a good frequency of times where people can, if they miss the bus by just a couple minutes, they're like, what do you do? So we have to, I think, fixed route. I don't want to cut. In fact, I think we need to do more when it comes to fixed routes. And as I understand it, that's where we get ridership counts that go towards the federal government and reimbursements or grants, any of that type of stuff. It's fixed route. It's not paratransit. So the more fixed route riders we get, the more funding we can get, the more it counts in a different way. Am I categorizing that right? How does the ridership work? Okay, so with that, and also shelters, down by me, I see people routinely standing next to a sign in the road, in the blazing sun or in the rain, whatever it is. So these are the types of things that we can encourage. And FAU, I know there's a lot of students that use it. I was at a panel discussion, and I know a number of them who take Tri-Rail, and if we don't have the buses timed just right, they're missing. So I'm on the Tri-Rail board, so I bring this up because we just passed, in our last meeting, the Broward County Transit Authority led the charge on this, but it's going to be a countywide or region-wide app for people to travel. With the fare-based system, you pay on the app, it goes to your bus, your train, you can go county to county. So this could help us increase ridership when it comes to connecting trains to the bus to get people where they're going to go. This is important. It gets cars off the road. It's going to help us with infrastructure. My anxiety with all of this all along has been paratransit, countywide paratransit. I see Palm Tree Connect buses. It's an Uber, basically, at this point. It's a very large Uber this is where I'm asking for the most help. When it comes to fixed routes, I think that we can do more. Paratransit, we've got to figure out how to wrangle this beast. It's not sustainable. And I understand, the previous board, whenever this happened, to take it countywide, but this is not sustainable. So that's where I'm asking you for the most help on how do we scale this back. So.
And Commissioner, just to follow up on that connection down in Boca Raton with Tri-Rail and FAU, that's a perfect example of a partnership we have with the city of Boca Raton that helps to fund that fixed route portion where we link Tri-Rail and the university together with PalmTran buses through the fixed route system. And we're working, and we've tried to work on more of those partnerships with other municipalities as well as some of our other communities where we go into with our PalmTran buses. So those are just ways that we're working with our cities and our residents to expand some of that fixed route opportunity.
Any other questions? It's getting late in the day. Commissioner Baxter?
More so questions and statements. So it was always my understanding we're not keeping track of a per capita number. It's ridership. Is that wrong?
In terms of how we report to the federal government?
How many people are using it?
Yeah, we have our ridership numbers that we know, like how many people board our buses.
Yeah, but ridership, if I take one bus from point A to point B, and then I take it from point B to point C, still the same person, but it's 2 riderships.
Yeah, so you're saying if somebody gets off a bus and then gets back on again, I mean, sometimes you can't really distinguish that because the systems that we have don't necessarily tell you, that somebody is not a unique or distinct rider. But when people walk onto buses, they can, we've got sensors that we know who's coming on and getting
I guess
off.
that's why I'm wondering, how do we know what the per capita cost is?
It's an average. You can assume.
Commissioner Weiss?
Thank you. It's based off the cost of operating and the population
But again-
of the jurisdiction.
Are we also calculating square miles when we're looking at this? And how many successful high-trafficked areas and fixed route systems and paratransit systems, how many, what is the population per square mile? Are we comparing the same numbers?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at our service areas and we look at our square miles, I mean, we're over, almost 2,000 square miles, our service area. When you look at other, Miami-Dade, for example, I mean, they're 306 square miles. But, they service 2.7 million people as opposed to our 1.4 million. So, almost double of what our population they service in that particular area. But their expenses are pretty high relative to their population. And they spend a lot of money. I mean, just to put it in perspective, we have 145 PalmTran buses. Miami-Dade has 1,125, buses in an area that is a thumbprint next to ours and a population that's only double ours, all things considered. So clearly, and when you have these more dense areas
Hold
too,
on.
as we
Are you saying Miami-Dade is double our population?
I'm saying that Miami-Dade is 2.7 million, their service area. We're 1.4 million, the service area that they serve versus the service
amount of
area
people.
that we serve. Yeah. So the amount of people is roughly about double ours.
That's correct.
I'll leave that one alone for now. So if we're not, I like Commissioner Woodward's idea. I like the idea of connections. I like the idea of the fixed route connections, buses, trains to separate areas. That makes so much sense, and especially around college campuses and allowing those students transportation. So when I'm talking about fixed route, I am not saying we were talking about the lowest used routes or the minimally used. So how many routes again do we have overall?
The total routes we have is 33 routes total.
And you were talking about in the scenario one about 8 different routes. Were any of those around the areas being described by Commissioner Woodward?
So the areas on those particular on those routes are, the West Palm Beach and the Belvedere area, Delray Beach along Atlantic Avenue, Delray on Linton, up in the North County on Military Trail up to the Gardens Mall, in West Palm Beach and Green Acres, the Purdy Parker area, Lawrence Road in Boynton Beach, which is your tri-rail to the Boynton Beach Mall, your crosstown in Boca Raton, which is Glades Boulevard, and then in West Palm Beach, your inlet that goes from West Palm Beach onto the island of Palm Beach to the inlet and back.
And you're saying those are the lowest used routes?
They have the lowest productivity of all of our
Productivity.
routes. So each of those routes serves either 11 individuals or less. Our least productive of those is 6.45. That's our West Palm Beach to the inlet. But again, you've got a lot of service workers that get on that particular route that are traversing from throughout West Palm Beach to the island of Palm Beach, and vice versa. So, I mean, even though you're talking about smaller numbers, that folks that are utilizing those routes are typically using them for economic and employment purposes.
And so we have a survey saying the overdevelopment infrastructure is important to our residents. I haven't seen where they've said, a high priority of our residents being public transportation. I'm not saying it's not necessary or useful, but I am saying not a priority, it seems, to our residents based on the survey we covered today. And so if we removed, because this is what we've been talking about all along, the gas tax dollars from PalmTran, it was funded some other way prior to using the gas tax dollars, was it not?
It was. It was funded, yeah, the ad valorem dollars.
So,
It was funded through Avalon dollars previously. When the economy turned bad, we moved some gas tax dollars over because we weren't doing as much road development. And so those dollars were used to offset that impact at the time, and it never came back. So we can switch it over, but if you're going to continue to build a system that incentivizes people to ride it and cut down on headways and put in and that's a pet peeve of mine as well, the shelters. So, our kids are not standing outside in the rain or workers looking to do it. We're going to have to fund it some other way, and that would be ad valorem for the most part.
And Commissioner, I would just say that when individuals talk about infrastructure in our community, and particularly those in the transit community, I think that transit is synonymous with infrastructure. When you talk about building roads, I mean, roads are there, but traversing roads are cars and buses and vehicles and curbs and those kinds of things. So I don't necessarily know that there's a major distinction between that. I mean, we can chat about that at greater length, but I do think that those in the transit community, when they think about infrastructure, they think about transit infrastructure as a component of that broader, that broader word that we use. That's just what I get from my discussions with folks on the street.
All right, I'm going to interrupt everyone for a moment. What is our charge today having to do with Palm Tran?
I believe that Palm Tran, we wanted to include it in the overall budget discussion because it's just a matter of which pocket am I going to take it from? Am I going to take gas tax dollars and put it more so we would have more allocation for roads, right? But we also need to know what level of service we're going to be providing on the Palm Tran side, because if you move those $33 million over, you got to fill it with something else. And right now that would be ad valorem, whether you fill it to the level it is today or later. It's my understanding that Palm Tran is going to come back to you with more information and detail. That also give Mr. Blaylock some time to provide us with input after he's completed his analysis of what our system looks like, and then give us some options. So we'll handle them separately, but we wanted you to have some flavor of where we are today with Palm Tran. What I'd like to get out of today is for you, if you've got something specific that you're looking for us as we prepare for the budget, to make sure that is in this budget, and we can adjust Palm Tran as they come back to you. So in summary, what I heard from the board today was that you do agree with us taking part of our mid-year adjustment and putting it into the capital plan.
Correct.
Okay. And then we'll come back and kind of lay that out as we continue to move it. Also to separate homeless from housing, and we're going to come up with another word for homeless, but unsheltered. That's the new word, is unsheltered. Unsheltered and then housing. So we'll have 7 strategic priorities that we need to address. What else did I miss?
Well, as we are late in the day, I have 2 more lights. Commissioner Baxter, you've had a lot to say. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, no, I was almost done. I mean, I would like to at least get a path back to where we were prior to, I guess, you guys deciding to take the dollars and from the gas tax, at least get it back on ad valorem, and then we can decide what adjustments we'd like to make from there, because our 5-year road program is suffering, and I would just like to see those dollars, make sure that's where they're going. We have so many road problems, so I don't want to necessarily cut anything today because you're coming back to us with a presentation, but let's at least move them over and free up those dollars for roads, and I would like to hear if there's any objections to that.
Well, actually, Commissioner Woodward, you had your light on.
Yes, thank you. Two things real quick. As far as, I agree, I don't think we should make a decision today on Palm Tran, but what I would like for when you bring it back to us, as when we talk about the routes with the lower ridership, I'd like to know how that compares to the frequency of the route. So if we have routes that have 1 an hour and they're low ridership, I mean, that may be the reason we have low ridership. So as we look at these routes, I think that's an important consideration that we have to make whenever we're making these decisions, and not just the ridership. Let us know how many times a day do people even have a chance to get on that bus. And then as far as the second one with the housing, we're separating it. For the other strategic category, I'd like it to, if everyone agrees, it's housing with development, as far as, you know,
Okay.
it's not just like affordable housing, but how are we tackling zoning for housing and all of the other development that's going with it? Because some of it's going to be mixed use and commercial, and just so that there's development as part of that strategic priority.
Can I just add one more piece, please?
Sure.
Just a food for thought, and which the commissions would consider this thought. I have participated in 2 major referendums, very successful. And one of the things that we understand about transportation, be it highway program as well as public transit, is that you have to have a plan, and it has to be funded. So whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, community is worth its weight in gold, particularly in a growing community like Palm Beach. So what I want to suggest to you, that you keep an open mind about your sales tax. I picked it up in the audience that you've got a particular sales tax. But one of the beauties of that is that we identified specific programs, because the last one that I led, or was a part of, not led, but was a part of, was called the Better Jacksonville Plan in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was a huge program. It had everything but the kitchen sink in it. We had roads, we had sidewalks, we had libraries, all kinds of infrastructure improvement. But more importantly, we had a lot of projects that were way underfunded and had been on our books for a very long time. And so with that referendum, we went to the community and we delivered all of those projects as we had promised. And it had a very unique public transit component to it as well. And so I just want you to have some really solid conversations, because there's some real value in those long-term planning and having those dollars applied to those infrastructure improvements. So I love to weigh in on that, because we had some really good stories I can share with you on that.
Thank you. Well, what I see is that...
No, nobody paid me to say that. No. I was sitting in the audience.
No, we didn't.
What I see is that there are buckets where these dollars are coming from, whether we're doing gas tax dollars over here or gas tax dollars over here. We don't use the gas tax dollars, but we use ad valorem. It's still a bucket. What we need to do is figure out how to make this system more cost effective. Then we can figure out where we want to have the dollars come from. I don't, we just lowered the millage rate last year. I would hate for us, our knee-jerk reaction to be move it over to ad valorem, and then that will affect our millage rate again. So I think we also should revisit where we were before the pandemic and where we are now, and how much money are we spending to get back to that when we have a greater population than we did before. So is this putting the cart before the horse? What are we really trying to accomplish? And I think before transportation disadvantage had such a wide coverage area, how effective were we and how many riders did we have? So there is a lot more questions to be asked. We have spent a great deal of time today in discussion. Very good questions have come up, and it does sound like Palm Tran has more homework to do, and I look forward to our continued discussion about it. And with that, anybody else have anything for the good of the order? I would like to thank staff for a job well done, for being so patient with us, and I wish you all a good evening. Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.